What's up? What's up? Welcome everybody once again to the thrift store, as it is night 8 of 2 weeks of tea, where we are streaming live every night for the next 2 weeks as part of TspTv 2-year celebration. So it looks like we got 6 of you all watching in the chat right now. And looks like we had a little bit of an incident. Good job, Callie, if we had a little bit of an old yeller thing going on there. But it is Monday night. The weekend is been and gone, and we are halfway through 2 weeks of tea. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay out there in the chat. Now, I'm not expecting we're going to get as many people as we did yesterday, and one of the most successful and enjoyable streams I think I have ever done at TspTv, and that was a little bit what I have been striving to do over the course of 2 weeks of tea, is bring to you what I consider a very presentable end product at the thrift store. As you know, Ship Video Productions has had a little bit of a transition of improvements over the last few months, and in particular these last 2 weeks, or not these last 2 weeks, this last week as part of 2 weeks of tea, I've been trying to sort of get together some informative information and put together some presentation on topics of interest to me. Hopefully they will be interesting to you, as well as putting together some purposeful and specific intros. So hopefully you enjoyed that little introduction into tonight's episode, where we are going to be talking about Mkjfk. So there you go, guys. That is the introductions to the thrift store. Let's get rid of our thumbnail, if I can. Yeah, there we go. Hello. Yes, it looks like we had a little bit of trolling perhaps going on there. Well, hello, Kathy Little. And I realized almost after the stream yesterday what you were getting at. So glad to see you back, sweetheart, to the thrift store. Hopefully you will enjoy tonight's topic, where we are kind of continuing a little bit, from where we left off yesterday. So we had a special presentation yesterday and an informative in a little piece of documentary that we looked at, or part of a documentary titled JFK to 9/11, Everything is a Rich Man's Trick. And I think many of you who did tune in yesterday will say it was a pretty eye-opening, informative, concise piece of documentation of the Kennedy assassination. Now, as I said, it was concise. We're not necessarily going to say it was conclusive. Now, the information we are going to be looking at tonight, when eventually we do get round to the presentation part of tonight's stream, we are going to be looking at the MK Ultra connection to JFK's assassination, and some of the players in part that may or may not have been under MK Ultra influence, or have been monarch programmed and were in fact Manchurian candidates. We're also going to look at the involvement of Marilyn Monroe, and in particular her association to Kennedy. And before Kennedy was assassinated, obviously we lost Marilyn Monroe around a year or so prior to JFK losing his life. And funny enough, Marilyn Monroe died at the age of 36. But I have put together a little bit of a presentation. It's about an hour 30 minutes long. If not, you guys enjoy it as much as yesterday, because it is a lot of reading, unfortunately, as unlike yesterday, because I did manage to find documentation and a video audio documentary part that kind of put together what I would have wanted to explain to you about the JFK assassination. That was why we saw yesterday's presentation. But this presentation is not necessarily my own exclusive theory, but it is a theory and thoughts and opinions I've had regarding Marilyn Monroe's involvement in the whole thing, and if or not she somehow was influencing JFK. She was MK Ultra monarch programmed alter. She was a sex kitten, part of the sex kitten beta programming part of that. And the purpose of these sex kittens is to somehow infiltrate, or sometimes rather infiltrate, people of influence, and there's probably no more person of greater influence rather than the United States of America president, the POTUS. Welcome JBG, Laurie, Nancy, Martha. Sound is great. Laurie's here. Cali Ninja had a really fucking weird idea that I do need to bring to you before I forget, before we do get back to tonight's proceedings. I thought of a wonderful TV show or comic book called Cali Ninja and the Cajun Agent. I could see the two of you going off on clandestine, maybe Murder She Wrote type adventures. Maybe not exactly heart to heart with Stephanie Beach and was it Robert Vaughn, driving around in exotic sports convertibles in the Napa Valley, but I could kind of see you driving around in a beat up old Ford Taurus with maybe a duct tape instead of a window, investigating shenanigans at the 7-Eleven. So Cali Ninja and the Cajun Agent, that's something I would certainly tune in to see. But back to tonight's proceedings, guys. As I said, this is a little bit of sort of not necessarily my own exclusive little sort of theory, but it is thoughts and opinions I have in trying to sort of piece the pictures, or oh my god, let's start again. Piece the parts of the puzzle together to maybe create or solve the mystery behind the mystery. Now, something we sort of didn't really maybe touch upon as much as I should have yesterday after the stream was the fact that, is it a staged event? Was the JFK an elaborate hoax? I mean, you know, was there a government cover-up? Was there a conspiracy? Was it a hoax? Did JFK himself fake his own death? Because there are rumors that other Kennedys have faked their death, and some of them have disappeared in strange circumstances. And Nancy made a very, very good point yesterday. Did JFK know about it? And like, how on earth could this guy be so unaware that everybody surrounding him and he was close to was plotting to assassinate him, unless of course he was part and parcel of the assassination hoax? Or was he an unwilling participant of the proceedings, and was he indeed put under some mind control by Marilyn Monroe? Was she also programmed to be a trigger? And we are going to be looking at some evidence today, and I'm sure some of you will be familiar with Marilyn Monroe and the fact that she did sing Happy Birthday to the president. Now, was that the moment she triggered MK Ultra methods into play for JFK? So that is why tonight's stream is titled Mkjfk. Also sounded kind of catchy there. So there you go. I've got Martha giving a already. So I've got you thinking, and this is a little bit, again, part of the purpose behind these is to maybe get you thinking a little bit about, oh no, I think she was all woman, Laurie. At least I certainly hope so, because that would have maybe tarnished some of my young teenage entertainments after dark. You know, when you sort of start figuring out that, hey, wait, what does this do? You know exactly what I'm talking about now. But let's not rule out any possibilities. And this is, again, let's look at all the information before we can rule out what information is nonsensical, what is relevant, and what is probable. You know, it is only with a greater understanding can we observe the bigger picture. Haha, question everything. No, that is exactly right, Laurie, and that is, again, a little bit of this that we are getting. Well, I'm trying to put together presentations to get you thinking, and unlike my uploads that don't seem to get any sort of interaction or feedback or group participation, and that is really and truly the only thing I do ever encourage on my streams and uploads, is give me your comments, give me your thoughts, give me your opinions. I really couldn't care less if you smash the bell, hit the like, subscribe, or share. I mean, that's all very nice. If you want to do that under your own free will, go right ahead, knock yourself out, but I ain't gonna ever tell you to do that. I'm not that kind of YouTuber. What I do encourage is thoughts and opinions, and it makes me wonder, you know, because some of these presentations I put together in these last couple of weeks are maybe not as well, maybe they are as good, but they are as important or as relevant as some of my uploads that don't seem to get any comments whatsoever, other than comments for sexy teens online. So part and parcel, I'm thinking, I put together these uploads that don't really get the response that I'm looking for. And as I said, that isn't, I don't want to be viral, I don't want millions of views, I don't want to go, be shared on everybody's news feed. But what I would like is the handful of you that do kind of watch my videos or do tune into these streams. I would like, a little bit of, group activity, I guess. And you're the guys I am kind of making these videos for. And when I do put an upload up that doesn't seem to get any feedback whatsoever, it makes me wonder as to why. And I'm guessing that sometimes stuff is lost in the community side of things. The interaction, the live chat and stuff is something that misses from the uploads. Maybe that's why people don't pay as much attention to them. So what I figured, I enjoy editing, I like putting together these presentations and stuff for you. So rather than put uploads up that don't get any response, let's make the uploads and make them part of the live feed. And that means I don't sort of have to sit here and entertain you for 3 or 4 hours on my own just ad-libbing. And also it gives you something to look at other than this ugly mug and the hands. And bear in mind, what's up, devil? Glad to see you here. So we are up to 10 viewers. That is also very nice. But yesterday we had a record 26 people in chat. Whether or not that was because it was the anniversary of JFK's assassination, and maybe some people were a little bit interested to commemorate the occasion, or not, or if indeed these presentations and these kind of live shows that I've been tinkering with since sort of spring break to try to get what I consider to be the most desirable end product together are beginning to get a little bit of intention and a little bit of enthusiasm to come back and tune in for more. So it is good to see that we are in double figures, and it has been very good. Sort of Friday, Saturday and Sunday we did have some astonishingly high counts of viewers in the live chat, and I think it's been a long time since we made 20 plus viewers for live. And this is what I'm saying, it is a very popular subject, and it was the anniversary of his death yesterday. So as I said, I had a couple of glitches in problems yesterday that may be a result of our good old buddies at the Google moderator team, and they somehow deactivated once again my microphone on my phone. So I did actually record a lot of this stuff yesterday, or at least I thought I was recording it. However, the audio was gone, so I had spent some of the day today again re-recording what I wanted to put together yesterday as part of that stream. But this is around an hour 30 long, so that would have been on top of the presentation we saw yesterday. That would have been nearly 2.5 hours. So it kind of in many ways works out better, because today we've got some follow-on content, and a little bit of what I am trying to do is kind of blend these streams in together one way or another. And something we sort of started off 2 weeks of tea last Monday was a little bit of social media engineering, and again in looking at how they have managed to modify and manipulate MK Ultra Monarch programs into your social media news feeds. And a lot of the content you are seeing, sharing and agreeing with, copying and pasting from friends, yada yada, whoopie woo, ray tay tay, that is all part of your mind control rhetoric. And this is how brainwashing does work. The more you repeat something, the more you get triggered to respond to these triggers when they are presented to you. And as I've mentioned quite a few times since the event, copy and paste the bunny, but change what it is holding really sent shivers up my spine, because the amount of people that were triggered to respond to that was astronomical. And once they realize that they've got that many people programmed to respond that quickly, where does the programming go next? And will that lead you to be somebody like Lee Harvey Oswald, a Manchurian candidate that may or may not go out and maybe not assassinate people of public interest or in high prolific positions of power, but maybe your neighbors, loved ones, or people that disagree with your particularly point of view and opinions. Anyway, Anika, did you just sneak in as well? So we're up to 12 folks at the moment. So hopefully, as I said, guys, some of you have come back each and every day. I did see something about Devil Speak had friends, or did I misinterpret it? So let me go and have a little look at some of your content comments before we start the presentation, because as I said, we've got about an hour and 30 minutes to get through. So that will bring the stream to around about the 2-hour mark. Now, if or not we go on indefinitely this evening, we will see. And the battery is pretty charged on the phone. I was up to 85% when I started the stream. So Google interference aside, we could maybe go on for quite some time. And as well, my roommate is out for the night, so I don't have to necessarily be quiet after midnight, which is something I do to be a little bit respectful. But anyway, we've got an open opportunity tomorrow, this evening, if we want to go on longer, although we could almost maybe shut this stream down, and if you guys are having fun in games, we could do an after show I don't know, up to you on that one. So let's have a little gander at what you are saying. So that's when Devil arrived. She was a large framed woman. Are you talking about Marilyn there, Laurie? She was. She's actually, her shape and her figures was what the Coca-Cola bottle is designed of. Yes, Michelle. Is Michelle here as well? I've got no friends. It's kind of like a problem when you are Devil Speak. A little bit like you. I mean, I know lots of people, but true friends, I don't suppose I could count on both hands if I had to. And that's, I think, why we've got that little bit of community support group spirit here at the thrift store. We are a bunch of lonely, lost souls, maybe swimming in a fishbowl year after year. And that's a little bit of a teaser for maybe some Tavistock related content you will be seeing maybe tomorrow or Thursday. I don't know. I'm going to try and do Tavistock either on Tuesday or Thursday. So that was about the no friends. I thought maybe you had friends over, you couldn't join us. So Anika is here. The Texas connection is strong. So I'm guessing, really and truly, as I said, we've got about an hour and 35 minutes of presentation to look at. Hopefully you will be entertained. I won't think you're rude if you leave and go off and do other things. But as I said, it is mostly, there is a couple of videos in there, but it is mostly me reading articles. So hopefully you will enjoy it. I got you no friends to share videos with. Well, that's all right, Devil Speak. The fact that we're sharing it with you is important enough, in the fact that we have got a few Thrift fan members tuned in. We've already seen someone left. They're like, oh shit, there's fucking lots of reading. I'm out of here. I got stuff to copy, paste, share, and agree with on my Facebook, where absolutely nobody's watching. Let me do my little thingy majig here that I like to do. So we are on YouTube, streaming live when it comes in. There it is. YouTube. We're also streaming live on Twitch, where I'm pretty sure nobody's watching either. We're up to 13 now, so maybe whoever left went to go and get their friend. They shared it. And we're also on Facebook, where again nobody's watching. I don't think anyone's ever watched, although that's not true. We've had a couple of people do pop in to the Facebook live stream, but with Prism streaming app, which I use to put together these shit video production live shows and presentations for you, it does give me the opportunity to stream on multiple platforms at the same time. So why the hell not? It's not any extra effort. But as I said, guys, let's get the presentation in place for you. There it is. So something else I'm going to just do quickly. Disable the camera. The camera's off, and I will be momentarily turning off the microphone, but not until I've lined this up for you. That looks good. Okay, guys, so I am going to turn off the mic now as we hand over to the pre-recorded presentation part of tonight's stream. hopefully you guys will enjoy this. Get yourself comfortable, smoke if you've got them, pour yourself another shot of whiskey. JBG, you deserve one, darling. It's Monday, we've survived another week, and we have a week ahead of us, and another 7 nights of 2 weeks of tea to enjoy. So here is Monday's presentation. I'm shutting the mic off now. I'll see you in chat very, very shortly. Guys, so let's get tonight's proceedings underway by starting out by looking at Marilyn Monroe, and if or not she did have some involvement or ties to the JFK assassination conspiracy, and is indeed the conspiracy that we have been doubting retorted over the years since the events of 11/22/63. Was that just the controlled opposition's narrative, and is the mystery surrounding JFK's assassination much greater and deeper than we possibly realize? Now, a little theory, as you probably will be aware by now, is the fact that I have reason to believe that Marilyn Monroe indeed played some part in hand, maybe willingly or unwillingly, in the demise of JFK, and reason being because she was an MK Ultra Monarch programmed sex kitten. But was she also a handler, or was she a trigger? This is what we are going to try and unravel here a little bit before we do look into the connections of Jack Ruby and Lee Harvey Oswald, also with MK Ultra, prior to the assassination of JFK back in 11/22/63. But anyway, this is kind of where it sort of starts in the moment that is in history that is a little bit eye-raising, to say the least. And we are going to look at that event very, very shortly. We do got the video to see, but this is a little article about Marilyn Monroe and her alleged affair with JFK. Now, if or not this article is the truth about it, that's up for you to decide, but we're not using it to kind of prove or disprove that JFK and Marilyn Monroe had an affair. It's about the implications of their relationship and what exactly it was that was going on between those two, and the purpose of some of these sex kittens, which we will unravel a little bit more as we go on, is to infiltrate people of influence, and then in turn with their programming will influence those people to probably do the bidding of whoever's controlling the altar. But as I said, this was one of those kind of strange events that Kennedy and the Kennedys in particular had a very close relationship to Marilyn Monroe, and what was the purpose of this relationship is what I'm kind of trying to get at. But back on May 19th, 1962, and this is the event in question that has raised my eyebrows and led me to believe this could have been an event that triggered the chain of events that then climaxed in November of '63 outside the Book Depository in Dallas, Texas. But anyway, back in 1962, on May the 19th, at a fundraiser and early birthday celebration for President John F. Kennedy, Marilyn Monroe shimmered into the Madison Square Gardens stage. She then shrugged off her glamorous fur coat to reveal a skin-tight, rhinestone-encrusted gown and stepped up to the microphone, where she sung "Happy Birthday, Mr. President," as some of you may be aware of, and we will look at that video now.
Mr. President, on this occasion of your birthday, this lovely lady is not only punctilious but punctual. Mr. President, Marilyn Monroe. A woman about whom it truly may be said she needs no introduction. But let me just say, here she is. question anyway, Mr. President, because in the history of show business, perhaps there has been no one female who meant so much, who has done more. Mr. President, the late Marilyn Monroe. After having had happy birthday sung to me in such a sweet.
So that was pretty interesting, and if or not you've seen that, or if it's been a while since you've seen that, you will possibly notice that she sort of made a few sort of symbols of covering her eyes, and a couple of times she did sort of make triangles with her arms, and the presenter introduced her as the late Marilyn Monroe. Now, apparently, this was a little bit of a quirkiness and satirical remark to her for her tardiness. Apparently, she was always late on movie sets or for appointments and such forth. But only 3 months later, at the age of 36, Marilyn Monroe once ended up dead in extremely suspicious circumstances. We are going to look at an article about that just after this. But had she served a purpose? Was she no longer, required, and was she surplus to requirement? And they disposed of her once she had extracted or carried out her purpose. Extracted information, implanted thoughts and mind controls or programs of her own, and then once she'd done this in order to silence her, she ended up dead. But then again, was the affair with the Kennedys, and in particular Jack F. Kennedy, something that was getting a little bit out of hand? And good old Jackie boy bumped her off, stop her going public, because that would be quite scandalous, the president and Marilyn Monroe in an affair. And we'll remember what sort of happened with Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. But anyway, poor old Jackie Kennedy, she attractive as glamorous as she was no Marilyn Monroe. Can't really fight that battle, Jackie, I'm sure. But anyway, if the public did not already believe that Hollywood sex symbol and a commander-in-chief were secret lovers, Monroe's sexy performance, as we've just seen, would make them the subjects of even more speculation. But the speculation I have was that Kennedy's trigger moment. Did she come on? Was Marilyn Monroe Kennedy's trigger? And under that point, was he under, the control of suggestion from outside influences, and were subliminal messages being planted to him in something, little Nancy mentioned in the episode just the other day, yesterday, in fact, at the time of recording. She sort of said, did JFK have an idea? How could he be so unaware that everybody that was so close to him was conspiring him against him? So was Marilyn Monroe conspiring against him? Was she part of the conspiracy? What part in the plot did she play? Is something that is always been a little bit of a mystery to me, and something I've found of particular interest, and why I'm kind of sharing with you now. But they were, as we said, subjects of speculation around having an affair, and were they romantic or not? Who knows? Who knows? And some people have led um, in file, they've led the speculation with lies and doctored photographs of the two of them together. And it's also very, very interesting. We just mentioned that Monroe would die just 3 months later. And there is a picture of JFK and the beautiful, stunning Marilyn Monroe. Is Britney Spears a Marilyn Monroe clone? And lots of these monarch content. If you did see the MK Ultra Monarch programming video I did upload a little while ago, we'll kind of see how Marilyn Monroe does play an awful big part in Monarch programming, and how some of these modern day alters will pay homage to Marilyn. So was she there singing happy birthday to entice JFK under the spell and law of mind control? Was she JFK's trigger? But anyway, they go on to say it was a very salacious thing to imagine. They were the two most famous and attractive figures in the world at the time, and rumors of the president's extramarital affairs were wildly decimated. But when it come to the alleged the Monroe Kennedy romance, how much truth was there behind all the gossip? Apparently, not much, according to multiple sources. So again, if there wasn't any romantic, what was their relationship all about? And this is where I believe truly that Monroe was programming him. She got close to him. She was an alter, but she'd been programmed in order to be the trigger to program Kennedy, or at least put him into the mindset, or introduce him to Monarch, and slowly, maybe over their liaisons, she brainwashed him into the picture, or into the program, rather. Sorry. But anyway, there's not much fuel to the fire, apparently, about their romantic liaisons. Now, according to most accounts, there are only a few times the two would meet. And there's a picture of Marilyn Monroe at the Paris ball that was at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in '57 with her handler, Arthur Miller. And there you go, you can kind of see her and Arthur there. He looks a little bit sinister and not like he really wants to be there. And there is the beautiful Marilyn, cleavage in all, smiles, white teeth. Goodness, was she the perfect creation? We are going to look into that a little bit more after this. But in April '57, both Monroe and Kennedy reportedly attended the April in Paris ball at the Waldorf Astoria in NYC, but they didn't meet. After all, they were there with their representative, whatever that word says, spouses. Monroe with playwright Arthur Miller, who wasn't really her boyfriend or love interest. He was her handler. And Kennedy, then the senator of Massachusetts, he was there with his good lady Jacqueline. Now, she's a bit of a stunner, Jacqueline, I must admit. But again, Marilyn and Jacqueline, I'm pretty sure most guys would go with Marilyn just for shits and giggles. But there were over 1,000 people in attendance at that event, but the two of them supposedly never come in contact. But 4 years later, in '61, the actress and the newly elected president of the United States were rumored to have both been at a dinner party hosted at the Santa Monica home of actor Peter Lawford. Lawford Lawford's wife, JFK's sister Patricia Kennedy Lawford, happened to be a close friend of Monroe. See, so a lot of close ties there, and into family relationships. However, while JFK did attend a luncheon at Lawford's on the date in question, it can't be confirmed that Monroe was also in attendance. The most plausible night for an affair would have been in March 62, in fact, on March 24th, which is only a few weeks prior to the May 19th Happy Birthday performance at Madison Square Garden, which I kind of do believe was a trigger moment for Kennedy. And did we witness that? Maybe not live on TV, but was it broadcast on TV screens for everybody to witness? But multiple historians agree Monroe and Kennedy are thought to have been at Bing Crosby, another potential MK Ultra linked handler. Bing Crosby, Sammy Davis Jr., a lot of the Brat Pack, Bob Hope, Frank Sinatra, a lot of those old style crooners, they were all Monarch handlers or MK Ultra handlers, and they would use Monarch programming techniques to brainwash and mind control individuals like Marilyn Monroe. Now, something's also very, very interesting in all of these. A lot of these people always have like double barrel names, like Marilyn Monroe, double M, and we'll look at a few more as we do get into this. Ronald Reagan, for example, RR. But where did we go? We go off topic a little bit there, but yeah, just interesting that some of these characters in question have double barrel names, and is that a little bit of a signal or a code thing there to suggest that these people are under control? But biographer Donald Spotto quotes Marilyn's close friend and masseur Ralph Roberts, and there you go again, RR. Who claims that while on the phone with Monroe, also Rothschild, Rockefeller, but also while he was on the phone that weekend, he had heard what sounded like Kennedy's voice in the background when she had called him to ask for professional massage advice, because Kennedy famously had a bad back. Was she getting some advice to give him a back rub with a more than happy ending? And goodness, that cleavage. Never mind, I digress. But anyway, Kennedy had a bad back. Was Marilyn looking for advice, or was she speaking to her handler? Was the masseuse her trigger? All right, you know what I'm saying? There's also handler, there's also trigger. And was she looking for advice because it wasn't a bad back? It was something else she needed advice, professional advice on. But this is what the claim was. Marilyn told me that this night in March was the only time in her affair with JFK, and this is not the masseuse, sorry, this is her friend in Jackie's sister-in-law or whatever it was. A great many people thought after the weekend there was more to it, but Marilyn gave me the impression that it was not a major event for either of them. It happened only once, and that was that. Again, another double-barreled Susan Strasberg, a daughter of Lee Strasberg and close friend of Monroe, corroborated this story in her unpublished memoirs. It was okay to sleep with a charismatic president, Susan said. And Marilyn, this is interesting, loved the secrecy and the drama of it all. And was it because she was a secret operative? But she was not the kind of man she wanted to spend her life with, and she made that very clear. And she didn't have much of a life left after singing Happy Birthday to live with him, even if she wanted to, because 3 months later she was brown bread, which is Cockney rhyming slang for dead. They were indeed together at Bing Crosby's home on the date in question. Is it possible that Kennedy asked Monroe to sing it at his birthday that very night? At the time of the celebration, Monroe was in town filming Something's Got to Give and been struggling with sinusitis and her dependency on barbiturates, both of which delayed the movie schedule, reports. So she was under the influence of drugs, and one of these drugs, psychotic, psychedelic, mind control or mind-inducing drugs. And there's a picture of her there prior to singing her song. There's some interesting things here with the shadow. Can you see there the multiple personalities? There's one shadow on top of another shadow on top of another shadow. Could that be a little bit of symbology there? Let me know in the comments now if you think so. But she was well enough to fly to New York. Actually, she wasn't in town filming. She had to fly to New York. My apologies. To fulfill a commitment to the president. But the studio used this pre planned absence as an excuse to cancel the film while blaming Monroe and suing her for breach of contract. In reality, it wasn't Monroe's fault. And she had requested the time off to attend the gala in advance. The movie was already filming, was falling behind because the script kept getting rewritten. The fundraiser birthday was the last known night when Kennedy and Monroe may have crossed paths. After singing the supposedly scandalous version of Happy Birthday, Monroe transitioned into a rendition of Thanks for the Memory with lyrics she penned, or did somebody else pen for the man of the hour? And there's another picture of her, and look at that booty. I just pause that for Aztec if he's watching, and some of the guys. Let's look at that Coca-Cola bottle figure, and that is why the Coca-Cola bottle looks the way it does, because it was based on the shape of Marilyn Monroe. Look that up for yourself. But this is interesting. Thanks, Mr. President, for all the things you've done, the battles that you've won, the way you deal with U.S. Steel. Now, U.S. Steel, U.S. Petroleum, these were sort of part and parcel of the industrial militarized complex that were part and parcel of the eventual assassination uh, of JFK. So, was she delivering a message in her little rendition there of things to come? But the way you deal with US Steel and our problems by the ton, we thank you so much. Was that a little sort of, what do they call it, a premature, preemptive eulogy? But then when JFK took the stage, and this is where it's interesting, I can now retire from politics after having a happy birthday sung to me in such a sweet, wholesome way. WW. There for you guys. I don't know if there's anything into that. Just like to sort of point a few of these things. And of course, it wasn't that much longer after that JFK was permanently retired from life, not just politics and presidency. He was taken out of the game, or was he? Was that all part of the staged event itself? And was his death faked? Who knows? As I said, the mystery behind the mystery of JFK is greater than the conspiracy itself. But here's possibly the only existing photo of the two figures together at a crowded party. And again, look at that rack and shapely figure of Marilyn Monroe. Once again, gentlemen, she was, very, very beautiful, stunning, picture perfect imagery of feminism or femidon. I don't know, whichever or whatever. Can't deny it. And here we got a couple of interesting characters here. This chap and possibly this chap, maybe these people in the background. This guy for certainly is a handler, and there's some Secret Service people. But Marilyn doesn't look very happy, and JFK doesn't exactly look as though they're very receptive to one another. Looks a little bit sterile and a little bit stiff, if you look. And again, sort of look at Marilyn's arm gestures, how sort of what's the word, animated she was during her performance, and how ecstatic she was to see the president. And here she is in possibly the only meeting that they ever had together, or the only time that they were photographed together, and they both look very uncomfortable. Don't know again if there's anything in that, but let me know what you think. A picture can tell 1,000 words, as they said. Interestingly, before she went on stage earlier that night, the star was introduced as what I mentioned at the beginning, or a little earlier, as the late, was that in past tense, Marilyn Monroe, a crack at her tardiness to film sets, but in hindsight, the title can be seen as a sad form of foreshadowing. Indeed, indeed it was. Because again, less than 3 months, on August the 5th, 1962, Marilyn would be found dead of a barbiturate. Is that how you say it? Excuse me. Those of you with medical knowledge can correct me if I'm wrong, although I probably won't be able to read it phonetically, even if you did. But she overdosed allegedly in a LA home, and she was 36. 3 months later, 36. Threes and sixes, and again there were threes and sixes. involved on JFK's assassination day. Although conspiracy theories persist, some involving the Kennedy family. And again, who killed her? Was it the Kennedys? Was it her handlers? Was it the CIA? Or did she just get so upset that maybe JFK wasn't returning her calls, that she told him she'd commit suicide if he didn't answer, or he didn't answer, so she followed through? I don't know. But as we said, 1 year later, on November 22nd, 11/2263, lots of numerology there for you. JFK was assassinated in Texas, outside the book depository in Dallas. He was 46. So what we are going to do now is look a little bit more into the death of Marilyn Monroe. There's a lot of shit there you don't really need to see. But let's come back and look at that picture before we sign out of this article and into the next one, where, as I said, we're going to be looking at the death of Marilyn Monroe, and then a little bit about the MK Ultra side of Marilyn Monroe before having a little look at Lee Harvey and Jack Ruby and their connections. So stay tuned. There once again is the stunning and beautiful Marilyn Monroe, and here we are going to be looking at the suspicious events of her death, all the sort of things that were surrounding around and a little bit more about her past, because we need to sort of understand who she was and how she was created, to the mystery of her death. But Marilyn Monroe shot to stardom in the 50s as a curvaceous comedic vixen, loved by men and women alike. She grew from pin-up girl to leading star and eventually into a cultural icon. Even today, she remains the embodiment of femininity. That was the word I was looking for earlier. Difficult word to say for me with all the T's. Femininity. There you go. So sometimes I do need to, or do try to enunciate. But anyway, she was the embodiment of femininity, and images of her grace everything from t-shirts and bedding to Andy Warhol's famous silk screen prints. But she is fixed in our cultural consciousness as forever young, blonde, and beautifully, because she never got the opportunity to age gracefully. At just 36, Marilyn Monroe was found dead in her home in Brentwood, California. Although it was officially ruled suicide, suspicious circumstances surrounding her death sparked a string of conspiracies. And as I've suggested, was it because she'd served her purpose as an MK Ultra monarch programmed alter? She'd done her duty to the secret alphabet agencies that owned her, and was she surplus to requirements and thus terminated from the program? Is what I am suggesting and getting at, as well as the possibility that maybe if there was some romantic liaison, then did the Kennedys bump her off? And if the Kennedys were prepared to bump Marilyn Monroe off, one of the most beautiful women on the planet and a cultural icon, then just how much of a good people were they? And was it a good thing that JFK was shot outside the book depository in Dallas, Texas? And bear in mind, there is some rumors that many of his family have faked their own deaths. So would it be possible or plausible to think that maybe JFK too faked his own death in a very elaborate scheme? But as I said, guys, the mystery behind the mystery is more mysterious than the conspiracy itself. But her fame continues well after her death, but she is remembered not only as a talented beauty gone too soon. Her legacy is always tainted with theories of crime cover up and conclusion that may never be put to rest, or collusion rather, that never put to rest. If you know anyone or anything, that's about suicidal thoughts. Yeah, call that number if you do know anybody, if they're having suicidal thoughts. Not a good thing to be living with suicidal thoughts, especially if maybe those suicidal thoughts are implanted to you electromagnetically. But anyway, the invention of Marilyn Monroe, and this is what I'm saying, she wasn't just someone that sprung out of nowhere. She was created in a think tank. Possibly a very similar think tank to Tavistock. Should probably come out of Laurel Canyon, and there's not a psychological operation. It doesn't have a tarnish of Tavistock in it, and I'm giving you that because that's where we're heading tomorrow, down a Tavistock wormhole. But there's a picture of her as a little youngster, and you can kind of see there she didn't quite have the cleavage that she did in later life. Was she one of the first recipients to body enhancements and getting a boon job? But Marilyn Monroe was an invention. She was born in Norma Morrison in Los Angeles. No, she was born Norma Jane Martison in Los Angeles. So they changed the name, right, for the persona of Marilyn Monroe. Um, in 1926, 26. I don't know if that's anything there. Sorry, my eyes are starting to get a little bit squinty once again. She never knew her father. She went by Norma Jean Barker, taking her mother's last name. Gladys Barker suffered from a paranoid schizophrenia. This was her mother, and was capable of caring for her daughter. So Marilyn Monroe or Norma Janney, I don't know. Let's just call her Norma, like Norma Bates. But Norma, as she was formerly known, would be a prime candidate for somebody that would be susceptible to monarch programming, because the trauma and mental health issues are believed to be passed down through DNA. But Monroe was raised in and out of foster homes where she suffered violence and sexual abuse. Prime candidate. To escape, she got married at 16 to a man named Jimmy Doherty. While he served as a merchant marine (MM) in South Pacific during WW2, Monroe did her part for the war effort by working at a munitions factory in Van Nuys. Bless her, good old girl, wholesome American. White picket fences, apple pie baking, sweet iced tea making, wholesome image of femininity. Sorry about that, guys. But in 1945, she caught the eye of David Conover, an army photographer who had been sent by the army's first motion picture unit to take pictures of the factory girls. With her curvy figure and pretty face, he recognized her potential, and in January 45, Monroe quit her factory job and began modeling as a pin-up girl. That August, she signed a contract with Blue Book. Interesting there. Project Blue Book is something you might be aware of. The government's research project into UFO sightings. We'll look at that again in the future. Don't worry. Trying to whet your appetite for future presentations at TspTv. But she signed up with the Blue Book model agency, and by the time Doherty returned in 46, she had appeared on, wait for it, 33 magazine covers. He disapproved of her career and they divorced that September. By then, she had set her sights on grander things. She signed a first acting contract. Maybe in doing so, she signed a deal with the devil, as they say, and is the case with many Hollywood types. Similar MK Ultra Monarch alters, Britney Spears, for one example, Miley Cyrus for another. But the tragic end for Marilyn Monroe, and this is a picture of her suicide scene there. And apparently, there's some rumors that those who discovered the body and the coroners and all that, they had a little bit of a party with the corpse of Marilyn Monroe while it was still a little bit warm, and maybe with a little bit of lube. It was just like the real thing. But anyway, by 1960, Monroe had won over American hearts in films like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and The 7-Year Itch. Given the public release of nude photos she had taken as a frantically struggling actress in 49, this only boosted her sympathy with both men and women. Again, was back then nude photos were the sex tape of the time. And, Paris Hilton, for example, was somebody who got famous as a result of a sex tape, as was Kim Kardashian. So was Marilyn the first starlet to release inappropriate material in order to boost her career? Or were they released as part of the project in her persona and her think tank and handlers to elevate her into the hearts and minds of the masses so she could then be used as a trigger of influence over society? But on the evening of Saturday, August 4th, Monroe called her psychiatrist Dr. Ralph Greenson. And again, is this the official narrative? And we all know what all know about official narratives being a little bit less than truthful. But apparently, on the August the 4th, the day of her death, she called a psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Greenson, complaining she couldn't sleep. A little bit like Michael Jackson, he complained he couldn't sleep. Remember, another candidate for MK Ultra Monarch programming there. She also phoned Peter Lawford, who we heard about in the previous article, was a friend of hers and also a friend of the Kennedys, who was worried she sounded depressed and was slurring her words. He invited her to dinner with him and his wife, Pat, but she claimed she was too tired and then told him, "Say goodbye to Pat, say goodbye to Jack, and say goodbye to yourself because you're a nice guy." Now, was there someone in the room with a gun at her head or with a syringe or something, and she knew she was about to die, and this was her sending out a last message? As I said, we don't really know, and this is all speculative, but let's try and work this out to set ourselves, or if or not you can see that maybe there is some plausible reason to think that maybe there was an assassin in her presence at the time she made this phone call. And the reason she sounded so depressed and harassed and distressed, perhaps, was the fact that she knew she only had moments left to live. When her housekeeper, Eunice Murray, awoke around 3 a.m., Monroe's bedroom light was still on, but the door was locked. When she knocked and received no answer, Murray phoned Dr. Greenson, not the police. She phoned Dr. Greenson. Dr. Greenson arrived around 3:30, and again 3:3 there, and used a fire poker to smash the window and enter the room. Monroe was lying face down on the bed, nude, and was clutching the telephone receiver with an empty bottle of Nembutal. Did I say that right? But with a bottle of pills or medicine lying next to her. And again, there's a suicide hotline. Call if you know anybody. Share if you agree. Can I get an amen? But anyway, her autopsy raised some questions as she is lounging around in her bathrobe. And remember, she used to sleep naked with just a pinch of Chanel No. 5. A little bit of advertising product placement there, and just the power of influence. Nearly every woman in the world back then used to desire and long for Chanel No. 5 as a result of Marilyn Monroe. Product placement, and what's the other word? Oh God, I can't think of it now. Never mind. Um, Endorsement, public endorsement by a popular public figure. There we are. But Monroe's body was sent to the LA County Coroner's Office for examination. The chief medical examiner, Dr. Theodore Colfrey, did not perform the autopsy. Instead, it was performed by Thomas Noguchi, a junior medical examiner. Maybe he's a junior medical examiner and he was looking to sort of get up the ladder and become a senior medical examiner. Maybe someone said, listen, if you do this for us and say that, we'll make sure you get yourself that job you're looking for, Thomas. But according to the Noguchi, um, you start from the assumption that everybody you examine might be a murder victim. He found no needle marks to indicate she had been injected against her will. The only trauma noticed was a slight, ecchymatic area on the left hip and side of the lower back. A toxicology report was performed, but only on her blood and liver, not any other organs. The most report showed clear signs of an overdose. 8 milligrams percent of chloral hydrate and 13 milligrams of Nembufan pentobarbital. Portable again. Sorry, my eyes are getting a little bit squinty. I'm going to take a little break after this one so that they get back to normal. But nevertheless, skeptics would seize on this oversight as evidence of a cover-up, and that's what I'm suggesting. Was there a cover-up? Was this junior guy rather than the senior guy who was selected? Was he being, forced against his will to deliver the official narrative? And again, what we say about official narratives, they are less than truthful, scientific, or even plausible. But anyway, there is some evidence of cover up. Some also found it suspicious there were no pills or evidence of the Nembatul's signature yellow dye in her stomach. But there was other things found in her stomach that were a little bit more unsavory. Semen, multiple semens found in her orifices, apparently, and that stuff is something that they didn't put in this article, but I've read quite a few reports suggesting that. I wish I could have found some of them in time to bring you to this, but we didn't really want to go down that murky and disturbing wormhole as much as we want to sort of concentrate on the fact that her murder was suspicion. And was she murdered because she'd played a part? Was she murdered because she got too close? What involvement did she have with the Kennedys, and what part did she play in the assassination, if any? He also this guy Noguchi felt there was nothing to indicate foul play, and on August 17th, the coroner's office released the official statement saying Monroe's death was caused by self-administered overdose of sedative drugs that made of death is plausible suicide. So, okay, that's what they're saying. Again, my apologies, my eyes are getting a little bit squinty reading these words. But Marilyn Monroe had a long history of depression, and there's a picture of her then looking very stunning, but not so happy. At first, suicide did not seem suspicious as well. It was well known Monroe suffered from depression and substance abuse problems. When he first met Monroe, her future husband Arthur Miller told her, "You're the saddest girl I've ever met." Her drug and alcohol abuse were exasperated by her chronic insomnia. The Nembatal, on which she had overdosed, had been prescribed by her psychiatrist, Dr. Hyman Engberg, Elgenberg, to help her sleep. Again, Michael Jackson, he couldn't sleep and was prescribed sleeping additives, right? Or sleeping supplements. She had also been undergoing a controversial analysis method called adoption therapy with Dr. Ralph Greenson for the past 2 years, and this controversial analysis and method, I believe, was her mind control programming period. For 2 years, Monroe had even previously overdosed on prescription pills. Maybe she was trying to escape the torment of her captors and owners and handlers, right? But suggestion, speculation, just piecing together my theory and sharing that with you, and hopefully some of you guys may or may not be seeing what I am getting at here. And I'm not saying I'm alone in thinking this thing. I'm sure there are many people that do, but I haven't really found so much information on this. So, as I said, this is not necessarily my baby, but something I have sort of pieced together and theorized for myself. In early 1962, Henry Weinstein, the producer of Something's Got to Give, called Monroe one morning after she failed to show up for work. When she answered, she was confused and slurring her words. Weinstein went to her house and found her in a barbiturate coma. Doctors arrived in time to pump her stomach, but the incident raised doubts that Monroe's ability to complete the film. An unlikely marriage, and this is what I'm talking about. This guy was her handler, he wasn't her husband, and there he is again. What's his name? Arthur Miller. So Monroe and playwright Arthur Miller met in 1950, but they were seeing other people. They reconnected in 1955, again the year that Marty McFly went back to the past in the DeLorean. 1955. Is there something around that year that we might have to unravel? I think I promised that before, and maybe we will in a future episode. But Monroe was infatuated with Miller. Of course he was. He was her handler. He was brainwashing her and mind controlling her. So of course she would be infatuated with him. Look into him for yourself if you want, guys. As I said, we don't want to spend too much time getting off topic. All the players in play around this, but Arthur Miller, as I said, I believe that was her MK Ultra handler, and that is why it was an unlikely marriage. But in 1956, they had a small ceremony, got married, and this is interesting. Look, she converted to Judaism to marry him because he was of Jewish religion. But anyway, she was infatuated with him, and I'm so concerned about protecting Arthur. I love him, and he's the only person, human being I have ever known that I could love, not only as a man, to which I am attracted to practically out of my senses about. And that is the interesting comment there, or quote from Marilyn Monroe, that she is out of her senses about. Was that because she was under mind control? I suspect it is. Um, and she trusts him as much as she trusts herself. Again, this is all suggestion and evidence, to me at least, that there is some mind control at play with Marilyn Monroe. But their honeymoon period ended when they moved to London in 1957. Monroe discovered a diary entry in which Miller wrote that he was disappointed in her and sometimes embarrassed by her in front of her friends. And maybe that's because she didn't really take that well to the programming, and maybe that's why he was embarrassed, because he sort of boasted that he was the best MK Ultra handler, but Marilyn didn't sort of handle the way she should have done, and that is why they eventually bumped her off. She's a little bit faulty and a little bit of a liability to the system. But they did return to America, buying a house in Roxbury, Connecticut. But clearly unhappy, Monroe had an affair with her Let's Make Love co-star in 1960. Excuse me there. Despite that, Miller pressured Monroe to star in the film so I got hiccups, in the film adaptation of his story, The Misfits. She was reluctant to accept the role. She hated the sexism she experienced on set, and resented that the role was bossed on her while the press was busy promoting The Misfits. The couple divorced. It would be the last film Monroe would complete. Interesting enough. Very, very sick girl. There's another picture of her outside. Exhausted and depressed, Monroe committed herself to Payne Whitery's psychiatric ward, having her depression. Did she commit herself? Or, a little bit like, Britney Spears, Amanda Bynes, or Burns, or whatever her name is. Miley Cyrus, once they're sort of programming around the age of 27, they go a little bit crazy and batshit. They get put into rehab. Was this her reprogramming? So she did this after the separation from her handler, Miller. She immediately regretted. I mean, again, maybe she escaped and for her own best interest went there and said, look, this is what I feel that's been going on. Help me. She immediately regretted the decision. Upon arrival, her clothes and belongings were taken from her. She was forced to take a bath and put on a hospital gown. A doctor performed a full body examination over Monroe's that word I can't read. I'm told you guys I'm getting squintier and squintier as this is going on. But he did a full body examination on her, and she had just received one less than 30 days before. So I'm guessing the doctor just did that for gratuitous, pervy reasons. No actual medical purposes for it. But she recounted her traumatic experience in a letter to Dr. Greason. I picked up a lightweight chair and slammed it against the glass intentionally. I went over with the glass concealed in my hand and sat quietly on the bed. I said to them, if you are going to treat me like a nut, I'll act like a nut. Um, I indicated if they did not let me out, I would harm myself. 4 staff members forcibly carried Monroe to the 7th floor, where she was forced to take another bath. Monroe was kept in a padded cell and locked in a psychiatric ward for 3 days. Horrible, horrible end to such a beautiful person. Although beautiful on the outside, who knows what was on the inside of her. As I said, Marilyn Monroe was a character created by the Hollywood industry, and has thus become the cultural icon that she did there. But there was, I'm not going to bother reading that. Something's got to give. Over the course of his career, Monroe's films had grossed about 200 million. But on her last film shoot, a director decided her star power wasn't worth putting up with, and her chronic tardiness, absenteeism, and overall difficult behavior, Monroe began shooting Something's Got to Give in early 62. She was derided by her co-workers as willingly disruptive, kicking off being a little bit of a diva by the thing. But they said it was because of a drug-induced haze as to combat her depression. However, Dean Martin threatened to quit unless she was brought back, saying, "I have the greatest respect for her and her talent and all other actresses who were considered for the role. But I signed to the picture with Marilyn Monroe and I will do it with no one else." He was rehired a few months later. Not everyone was pleased about her return. The film's screenwriter Walter Bernstein called her a movie star who's getting her way and who doesn't give a damn about anybody else. The communist conspiracy. Okay, so let's see if we can get through this without my eyes squinting too much. So there she is again with her handler being led around. And he's probably looking a little bit embarrassed of her in public there and smoking on his pipe. Doesn't look very happy to be the envy of every man on the planet who was married to beautiful Marilyn Monroe. There was no real conspiracy surrounding Marilyn Monroe's death until 1964 when Frank A. Capella published a book titled The Strange Death of Marilyn Monroe. The short book claimed Monroe had been murdered by communists on the orders of then Attorney General Robert Kennedy. The Kennedy involvement, guys. Capel believed Monroe and Robert Kennedy had been lovers, but the relationship soured when Kennedy refused to leave his wife. Furious, Monroe threatened to go public with the relationship rather than risk his shot at presidency. Kennedy supposedly dispatched a cabal of communists to eliminate Monroe and cover the murder up. Now, again, the communist involvement was what was supposedly Lee Harvey's connection to the assassination, and it was because he was a commie and been over in Russia and living in Minsk for a few years, married himself a Russian girl, the first mail order Russian bride, but he didn't mail order, he had to go to Minsk to collect her. But he was formerly a Marine, and again, we're going to look a little bit more at Lee Harvey very, very shortly. So did Kennedy hire the communists to stage his assassination is another question I like to raise for you guys. But a staunch anti-communist Capel claimed when a person has become a liability or is getting out of hand, the Communist Party has no computation in order in his or her liquidation. Marilyn was deeply involved with left-wingers, as was the case with her husband or handler, whichever you wish to label him as, and identified with communists. Her death has many suspicious aspects to it. No shit, I should say. The National Archive also reveals that Marilyn Monroe's doctor, Hyman Engelberg, admitted to being a member of the Communist Party, but Monroe's most public association with communism was her husband, Arthur Miller. There we go, just mentioned him for you. The left-wing playwright had been summoned to D.C. in 1956 to testify before the House Un-American Activities Committee about party-affiliated meetings he had attended in the 1940s. Despite advice against it, Monroe publicly stood by Miller. Although he was cited for contempt, Monroe's popularity saved Miller from being blacklisted. So she served a lot of purposes for good old Arthur Miller. Wouldn't you agree? And here it is, the Kennedy affair, which we're not going to go into too much because we did just look at that in the article prior to it. But if or not you feel you need to read that, you can pause it and read it for yourself. But as I said, we did look at the affair with Kennedy prior, and was that the reason that she was bumped up? Did the Kennedys have it, or did the government alphabet agencies do it once she'd served a purpose? And there is another picture of her there in the garden. By the 70s, the rumor was in full swing. Claims began surfacing that Monroe had been murdered by Kennedy's loyalists in the CIA. And remember, the CIA also played a part in killing Kennedy, so they weren't exactly that loyal to him, was it? Since where this sort of like little mystery does sort of start to fall in on itself. But this is the theory of the author of this article, not necessarily my thought, but as I said, there is some suspicions there, and this is some of the suspicions and thoughts, I guess, that he has put in there. And again, in order to gain a greater understanding, we need to look at all the information. But Monroe planned to release information to the Chicago Tribune to hide the scandal. The CIA injected Monroe with barbiturates that she was known to have a habit for and staged her death to look like suicide. Um, and this is something interesting there. She had also been privy, sorry, I missed that bit, I don't know how, but she'd been privy to a confidential information about a secret CIA plot to kill Castro. We're having an interesting chat about Castro in Discord last night after the show ended. And again, this is what suggests to me that she was used as the honey trap. She was an MK Ultra Monarch programmed order, but she had been programmed to be a trigger or be able to get into the places of very, very high influential people in order to extract information or maybe implant desired protocols as a result of her secret shadow government handlers and officials' desire. Jack Clemens, the homicide investigator, was first on the scene at Monroe's death, was adamant that she was murdered by a needle injection by someone she knew and probably trusted. This was the cover-up crime of the century, a matter of the Los Angeles PD and other officials protecting a famous political family of the East who had good reasons to shut Monroe's mouth. In 73, a book, Marilyn, a novel biography by Norman Mailer, raised questions over the integrity of the investigation, especially the autopsy. The word was out to keep this thing a secret, not to make it a murder. If you're a coroner and you're going to feel the official mood is to find evidence of suicide, you wouldn't want to come in with murder, he wrote. There was an inquest in 82 regarding her death. There she is once again. But in August 82, the LA County District Attorney Office reopened the investigation into Marilyn Monroe's death in light of new allegations. The deputy coroner, Lionel Grandison, came forward claiming that he had been coerced into signing the death certificate. Grandson also claimed that the whole thing was an organized to hide the truth. An original autopsy file vanished. That was the one I'm talking about, with all the reports of multiple semen samples in and around her orifices. And this vanished. Scrawled note, along with a scrawled note that Marilyn wrote and which did not speak of suicide, also vanished. And so did the first police report. So everything was covered up, vanished, disappeared, burnt, shredded, whatever, and they rewrit the autopsy and report of death to fit the official narrative. Um, Another detective suggested, or claimed rather, that Monroe's diary had gone missing after her death. He believes the diary held damning information about the Kennedys, including information of the CIA's plot to kill Castro and the Kennedys' involvement with the mafia, per the CIA. And again, is this a little bit of the official thing over there? Because again, it was the CIA that did play a little bit of a part in the assassination of Kennedy. And was it his failed attempt to the Bay of Pigs in assassinating, take Castro out? Was why, oh my God, Kennedy didn't, was he surplus to requirements and thus terminated? from going and getting out of control. As I said, the mystery is greater than the mystery itself. He even offered 10 grand to anyone who could turn up new information or return the missing diary. However, the diary never appeared, and the inquest failed to turn up any viable new information. It was a tragic accident, they are saying. The final tragic explanation is Marilyn Monroe's death was simply an accidental overdose. I don't believe that. That is what this article is kind of suggesting. So that's pretty much the brunt of this article here. And there's some more stuff about JFK's assassination there. Is that another article itself? No, that's next up. Okay, so sorry, I thought that was part of the same article, but we are going to be going over and having a little look at this individual next, Lee Harvey Oswald, in his connection to MK Ultra. Okay, so here we are with Lee Harvey. I just enjoyed my little smoke and bathroom break, but for you, that was an instantaneous transition from Marilyn into Lee Harvey. So here we are, MK Ultra, making of a Manchurian candidate, Oswald, and this come out May 3rd, 2018. But this is a sort of common theory or belief within the JFK conspiracy that Lee Harvey Oswald was a Manchurian candidate. He was under the spell of MK Ultra and Monarch program. Was Jack Ruby his handler? Was Jack Ruby a fellow author? Were there many multiple authors and MK Ultra Monarch programmed individuals that helped carry out this event? How staged it was? Who staged it? Was it in fact an elaborate plot by Kennedy himself to stage his death? And maybe somehow Marilyn Monroe's death was staged and they managed to go and live off somewhere secret together in total bliss. That's a little bit out there, but let's not rule out anything in the realms of possibility with the mysteries of the deep state and shadow governments in all the secret alphabet agencies. But Lee Harvey Oswald, why Lee Harvey Oswald? What's happened there? Oh, sorry about that. Lee Harvey Oswald was an MK Ultra, Manchurian candidate. Lee was born in October 18, 1939 in New Orleans, Louisiana. He was a little Cajun agent all of his own. He died on November 24th, 1963, 2 days after he allegedly fired 3 shots from the book depository, 2 of which killed JFK. 1 missed, and of course, 1 was alleged to be the notorious magic bullet. But he was then shot by Jack Ruby, who may or may not have been his handler, or may not have been a Manchurian candidate all of his own. And as we sort of established yesterday, that they really did go overkill and want to ensure that Kennedy got killed. So would it be then plausible to think that maybe there were multiple Manchurian candidates involved? In fact, how many Manchurian candidates are there? And is it reasonable to believe that there maybe aren't that many people who aren't Manchurian candidates? Because I believe the electromagnetic mind control and monarch methods are very widespread and have been transmitted not from little secret laboratories that they once were conducted in their experimental stages of development. They've now been perfected and modified and repackaged and rebranded into the cellular devices known as smart technology that we carry around with us each and every day. And we have our own little personal artificial intelligent handler that provides us with our daily dose of monarch programming. But anyway, Jack Ruby, aka Jacob Leon Rubenstein, was a Jewish mobster born in Chicago, and he was a CI operative and club owner. As a child, Ruby, like Lee Oswald, was in many foster homes enabling the military to enlist him in the MK Ultra program. And we've established by now that people who have been subjected to trauma, maybe displaced, people who have been in foster homes, just like Marilyn Monroe, just like Lee Harvey Oswald, just like Jack Ruby, they all filled the credentials and requirements for a perfect MK Ultra Monarch programmed altar candidate. So Lee's father died 2 months before his birth, and as an infant, Lee was sent to an orphanage along with his two older brothers. He was conscripted into the MK Ultra program as a baby because babies and youths, a little bit like in Stranger Things with 11 and the kids that were, and what we saw at the Montauk Project Real Life Stranger Things episode, that kids were dragged up from either orphanages, off the street, kidnapped, abducted, and carried out experimentations on in these labs. God even knows what level of experiments they did, but the reason they picked children is because the mind is a little bit less undeveloped, and also the skull is not as thick as the adult skull. The skull and the bone fragments are still in their formation, and thus are more easier to transmit electromagnetic waves through into the brain. But he was introduced into it as a baby, and he was trained as an MK Ultra alter to be a sex slave and to be compliant. Now, although he had a Russian wife, there's also rumors that he was a homosexual, and him and Ruby also, like back then in the 60s, homosexuality was something that was still very, very taboo and still very much something you kept in the closet. And a lot of sort of famous people of that time were homosexuals. Rock Hudson, one of the most handsome actors of the time, well-known people, he was also a homosexual. And a lot of these secret agency individuals have some weird sexual fetishes as well. So this was his point. He was not just a sex slave. He was also a Manchurian candidate, as well as being a sex kitten, similar to Marilyn Monroe, but a homosexual version. So he was, sorry about that. Goodness, why does that keep happening? He was trained to be an assassin, a Manchurian candidate, an assassin of presidents, as well as a covert CIA operative skilled in espionage. Now, he did also go on to the military, and he was a Marine. Lee Harvey Oswald didn't just fit the bill, he was made into the bill. Was Lee Harvey the model for many other Manchurian candidates? And there was the movie The Manchurian Candidate that reportedly was delayed as a result of the JFK assassination, but the movie Manchurian Candidate came out at the same time, or around about the same time, as the events that took place outside the book depository in grassy knoll down there in Dallas, Texas. But he made into the bill. Was he the archetype, the stereotype, the model, or the perfect prime model of MK Manchurian monarch programming? He was a patsy. Even though Lee did not actually kill the president, he was selected, trained, and framed for the job. That was his part. And was his gun even loaded with live ammunition? Was he programmed to believe that he was the one that was going to be carrying out the assassination, while the job in hand actually laid within the hands of other highly trained paid professionals, or a young kid armed with a Mauser that was hiding in a drain cover shot from a sewage drain uh, thing on the side of the street. But anyway, his future was planned before his birth. After Lee's military training as a baby in the MK Ultra project, Lee joined the Marines. Did he join the Marines, or did they put him into the Marines as part of the MK Ultra to get some military training? And Marines are trained to kill. And he reportedly defected to the Soviet Union. Did he defect, or was he a double agent? That statement in and on itself is I can't say that word, juxtaposition. You read it for yourself. Sorry about that, guys. Marines are the most hardcore dedicated servicemen in our armed forces. To think that Lee would have ever defected after being a Marine is a complete fallacy. And again, was he sheep dipped a little bit like Timothy McVeigh later on in the 90s? He was a Marine, highly acclaimed and honorated Marine. He was a sharpshooter. He was beyond capacity in his endurance. Was that a little bit about Lee Harvey, or are they trained military wise and then selected to go into further espionage and secret governmental alphabet agencies purposes once they have served requirements in the Marines? And as again, was Harvey Oswald sheep dipped and put as a double operative into the Soviet Union in order to gain some communist secrets? But as I said, it was a complete fallacy that somebody being so dedicated to patriotism would defect. And this is a little bit exactly what they do with sheep dip, and they make it look as though you become very disillusioned with your government, military, and service career, and then go off and sort of participate in sort of hippie or clandestine communist type activities. He was a patriot, and he was ordered to go to the Soviet Union undercover, as I just said. And as a patriot, was he carrying out a patriotic duty, taking out Kennedy, or part of the Kennedy assassination plot? Was Kennedy a good guy, or was he a bad guy? Who knows? If Kennedy did indeed have Marilyn Monroe killed to shut her up because she wanted to start a life with him, or not, remains to be seen. And if he was part and parcel of killing Marilyn Monroe, then how much of a good man was he, if you get what I'm saying there? But additionally, he left and he went off to Russia as to go undercover. He believed that it was for the good of the country and that he was to decimate information and receive training from Russians to further his career as a CIA operative. He did, in fact, receive further training in Russia. Additionally, he was also subject to further mind control experiments where he was genetically experimented on, tortured, and further enhanced with implants under MK Ultra. The Soviets at the time were leaders in mind control. Did he go there to learn some MK Ultra methods and tactics and mind control and bring those back to the United States as part of his mission in the Soviet Union? He was trained in New York under Stella Adler. She advised herself. Sorry, who's this about? No. I was trained in New York under Stella Adler. She advised herself as an acting teacher, but she was in fact an expertly trained mind control expert, stroke handler, and CIA operative. Stella and Lee Strasberg were disciples of Constrain, um, of Konstantin again with the names, Stratislavsky, a Russian mind control expert. Konstantin was the founder of the Moscow Art Theatre, and for over 40 years he worked meticulously with top minds in the world developing Russian mind control, which he presented to the world as the system, as it was known in Russia, and as the method or method acting in America. He had a wealthy family and knew many of the elites, interestingly enough. He gathered their support. Additionally, he worked with Lenin. And again, the system is something you sometimes hear, you've got to beat the system. The system is that our mind control imprisonment there. The system that Stratislavsky developed under the auspices of an acting method, and again, were they method acting the staged assassination of JFK, was the system to infiltrate the mind control. So method acting is sort of like, Robert De Niro allegedly, when he was, not allegedly, he did when he was filming Taxi Driver, work alongside with and as a taxi driver in New York to sort of feel, to make a more real portrayal of a taxi driver. And this is an example of method acting for you. So kind of playing the part, to play in the part, to gain the experience of the part you are to play. A little bit there, if that makes sense to you guys. It makes sense in my head. Unfortunately, the words didn't come to me in order to eloquently portray it to you. But anyway, this was a system to infiltrate the mind and control it, though real life scenarios in the theatre as well as theatre life. He worked, and again, they use it as a guise. You also kind of present it as a benefit when really it's sort of working against us. But he worked with top doctors and scientists internationally to develop a system for mind infiltration using torture, hypnosis, sexual abuse, and terror. So where psychological operations come in, they used to terrify us, acts of terrorism, scare us, and then put us into a sort of state of hypnosis that we will then be subjectable to receive the programming of the official narrative. He worked hand in hand and in conjunction with Japan, who developed the Manchurian Candidate program synonymous with MK Ultra. Lee was accused of assassinating JFK in November 2020, November 22 in 1963 in Dallas, Texas, but he did not. 2 days later, Jack Ruby murdered Oswald while he was in police custody in front of a mainstream news report crew of television, radio, and newspaper personnel there that were on hand to witness the assassination, to make sure he was dead. Again, another staged event where they method acting, where they playing out the part, where they indeed crisis actors, and like the method acting mind control principles here are something that are employed with crisis actors. David Hogg, for example, was Lee Harvey, the archetype to these individuals. Lee Harvey Oswald was involved with Dr. Mary Sherman and David Ferrer in the CIA covert operations Artichoke and Mongoose. Some interesting operations we may look at a future date. But we won't digress any more on at this moment because time is becoming of the essence for me at time of recording. So we do need to get a little bit through this before I do get to the point of no return in terms of editing and getting ready for the scheduled time of 9 p.m. Eastern, where this presentation is intended to be delivered. But anyway, let's go back a little bit. I've got off track there. The stupid thing that comes down. But Operation Artichoke and Mongoose are something we will get to at another point. One of the goals of these operations was to weaponize viruses. Interesting in contemporary times to pay attention to that. And cancer to kill our enemies. And are we now enemies of the system or the state that are using viruses, MK Ultra and Monarch programming against us right now in the masses across the world? But David Ferrer died in February 1967 of cancer, less than 2 weeks after Jim Garrison, the New Orleans district attorney's story broke about Clay Shaw's indictment for the murder of JFK. David Ferrer was a main witness. The fact that he was involved in weaponizing cancer and then died of cancer, and that Ruby died of cancer, leads to the inevitable conclusion that cancer was weaponized and was utilized in the death of Ferrer Ruby. Dr. Mary Sherman, on the other hand, suffered a different fate. She was born in Evanston, Illinois, April 21, 1913, and she was murdered July 21st, 64, in New Orleans, Louisiana, maybe by a little Cajun agent, and she was slashed with a knife and set on fire. Quite a barbaric way to go. So there you go. That was a little article for you on Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby and their connection to JFK. And we are going to look at one more article very quickly before we do go back to the Thrift Store studio and return live for questions, answers, and discussion, as well as maybe some frolicking and festivities and fun joking. But let's, before we do that, take one last look at an article to interest and titillate the hunger for knowledge a little bit on Jack Ruby. Alrighty. So here we are with Jack Ruby and his connections to MK Ultra. Now this is kind of a long-ish article, which I'm gonna try and fast track and skip through. Um, but there you can see Jack Ruby assassinating Lee Harvey in front of the watching mainstream reporters, cameras, and you know, microphones and such forth for the watching world. And was this a staged event? Was this a little bit of method acting in real time? Was this dramatization being passed off as real life? Was this the first example of crisis acting on mainstream platforms? But anyway, after he shot Lee Harvey Oswald, Jack Ruby's psychosis was diagnosed by the same CIA doctor who had once killed an elephant with LSD psychedelics and was also part of a CIA contracted research team that was developing tactics and methods of MK Ultras. So we'll start off with reading this. Some researchers in JFK assassination community are aware of the fact that one of the doctors that treated Jack Ruby, and this is interesting, was he Ruby's handler? Was Ruby a order of his own? Was he a Manchurian candidate? Did they were they trying to cover up every last little trace and perpetuator of that particular clandestine conspiracy that isn't so clandestine and is one of the most popularly followed and researched conspiracies of all time, along with 9/11? I don't think there is a greater one than JFK, but it is the mystery behind the mystery that is more mysterious, and certainly to me, in trying to sort of unravel some of the stuff that may or may not be highlighted or paid that much attention to with the official narrative of the conspiracy surrounding JFK assassination. Again, when I say official narrative, I mean the controlled opposition official narrative of what they want us to believe was the conspiracy. But Louis Jolion West, this individual was a figure equally infamous for allegedly killing an elephant with LSD and for his work in MK Ultra. So was it a coincidence that this individual with so much background in MK Ultra was the individual that would carry out testing in examining Jack Ruby in the aftermath of the assassination of Lee Harvey Oswald? So bear in mind, within a period of 2 days, we'd seen two televised assassinations, real life snuff, or was it crisis acting, staged events? This is all what we're trying to conjure up thoughts and start getting our minds together to try and unravel. But anyway, as I said, this is a very long article, so we're not going to read it all. But an analysis of available documents from the CIA's declassified archives and the recovered MK Ultras files showed that not only did West want to continue his work with the agency during the period he was treating Ruby, the university he reached at, though he was I don't know why that bit doesn't make sense to me, but anyway, he wanted to continue his work at the time he was treating Ruby and with the university he researched at, though that's exactly what he was doing. So was he treating them as well as a sideline, as well as doing his research on mind control for the agency and the university, or was Ruby part of that research? And there's something there that I can't even begin to read because that is far too blurry. Again, stop and pause if you want to. Sharing and agree, copy and paste the rabbit. Never mind, I don't know why I keep saying that. Maybe I should quit that, but maybe for the duration of 2 weeks of tea, it will be a little bit of a satirical humor amongst Thrift Fan members. But anyway, in August of 77, Attorney General Anthony Lapham sent out a form letter to 80 or more institutes which had been used. Government contractors, guys, and government contractors can kind of hide away all sorts of things and wouldn't be a governmental cover up if they are just contracted. Oh, the government can have plausible deniability. Oh, we thought they were doing wholesome research. We had no idea about the drug induced mind control experimentation and the fact that they were trying to open wormholes to other dimensions or realms of time. But anyway, a whole bunch of people, 80 in fact, organizations and institutions had been subpoenaed, and put together as part and parcel of organizations that had a hand in MK Ultra programming and experimentation, and whose identities were suddenly revealed in a cache of documents that had recently been discovered to have escaped the shredding and burning of all the MK Ultra related files. Exploitation guys, they were cleaning up the evidence. They didn't want anybody knowing about it, but some of the documents survived, and some of these documents then made their hands into the Attorney General there, Anthony Lampham. But anyway, all information. Where are we? Let's go back. Sorry. So the shredding of all the MK Ultra files, that was exploitation. But CIA Director Richard Helm, when Paul F. Sharp, the president of the University of Oklahoma, received this letter, he wrote back to the agency and requested all information possible about the project's operations at the university. To date, neither Sharp's letter nor the CIA's response have been made public, although a copy of the letter sent has been located, and there is a copy of that letter that you can read for yourself. So let's skip down some of this. Again, let me just stop there. If you do want to read, it sort of tells about this guy that was involved in how he was funding the projects and the resource at the University of Oklahoma. West, this is the individual that supposedly examined Ruby, was also said that his LSD research was limited to animals, although it is known that from the recovered documents that he worked with humans as well, but he publicly denied being aware that the project was CIA funded. Nothing to see here, folks. I was just doing what I was told to. Documents show that he was explicitly aware and he was a direct contact with it. So, as I said, was he a pretty high-ranking member and part of the MK Ultra project? And I'm guessing this is some of the stuff there that you can read, that he was researching psychology of disassociated LSD, drugs, all that kind of thing, hypnosis. Sorry, I just can't really read it. It's a little bit squinty. And again, you know, we have to kind of consider if or not these are indeed legitimate documents, or they've just been manufactured to support the story here. A recovered CIA document listing different MK Ultra sub-projects shows that sub-project 43 associated with West and occurred at the University of Oklahoma began in 1955, folks. There's that year again, and ended in 56 when he was also retired from the Air Force. The LSD work with animals that he and Sharp referred to took place years later and may or may not have involved human experimentation, although it's known that his earlier work did. It might be easy to dismiss this if not for the proposal for West to continue his MK Ultra work at the CIA for another 11 years. Some of the documents embedded at the bottom of the article missed crucial facts. Colin Ross' examination in the CIA doctors describes the proposal, but fails to note the fact that it was written after the $20,000 documented funds that West received from the CIA. The letter accompanied with the proposal is dated February 56. And I'm guessing this might be a copy of that letter itself. So it goes on about the letter and all this stuff and his connections to the CIA and the MK Ultra project. But this is where we get to Jack Ruby, which is what I wanted to put this article up for you. Ruby had an isolated cell constructed for him to live in as well as he awaited his fate and contemplated the possibility of being executed for assassinating Lee Harvey Oswald. Or was he part of the project and he was put in his little padded cell to stop him from defuncting or deactivating his program or saying something he shouldn't, or going off, you know, on his own free will? Maybe like Marilyn Monroe, tried to call out for help but ended up in a worse situation. So was he imprisoned in his own cell? Why he was imprisoned in his own cell rather is a very interesting fact in itself, but he was facing the possibility of being executed. But the proposal stated that there is reason to believe that the environmental manipulations can affect the tendencies for dissociative phenomena to occur. Isolation, in particular, can markedly change the individual's response to suggestion. That's why we're being told to socially distance and remain 6 feet from each other, because with the dissociative phenomenon will make us more subject to suggestion. I mean, was this part, was Ruby being carried out, the experimentation, were they experimenting on him to see if he did have the dissociative, desired disassociation rather from the crimes that he committed? And was the fact that maybe he was aware that he committed the crimes indication that the experimentation had indeed failed? Um, but that's why they put him away in a little, and this is where it's interesting. They locked him up in his own little individual cage that was purposely built for him. Um, it is proposed that new experiments utilizing special environmental manipulations, including sensory isolation, begun. West's proposal specifies that these can produce marked personality changes, which Ruby appeared to have undergone in West's examination on him. The report asserts that Ruby was psychotic and delusional at the time. Was this a result of his programming defunctioning? Was this him rejecting his programming, or was it? Let me try and get rid of that. There we go, that's better. But in the report, West said that hypnosis and intravenous sodium pentothal were included rather among the possible techniques to be used on Ruby. In his proposal to the CIA for continuing his MK Ultra work with them, he proposed that the combined use of hypnotic techniques and autonomic drugs be exercised. Sodium pentanol is a barbiturate, as a barbiturate is one such autonomic drug rather, frequently used in various MK Ultra experiments. And that was the drug that good old Marilyn Monroe was addicted to, that we started out this little rabbit hole. And it's used in MK Ultra experiments and other interrogation or hypnosis related programs. Sorry about that. What the hell's going on here? Sorry. But in total, West requested an additional $35,995 for the next year's work, not including the other 10 years of research he had proposed. This included 5,000 for polygraphic, electrophilographic, electromagnetic, and special stimulatory apparatus. Words with T's are terrible for me to say. So he wanted a lot of money for all to carry out research in all of the above there. And I'm guessing a report of psychiatric examination of Jack Ruby. 2 weeks ago, Dr. Smith asked me, I can't read these words, if I would be willing to examine Mr. Jack Ruby permanently under death sentence in Dallas County Jail and without financial reward. I agreed to attending the examinations, but I said I can't read that shit, and it's not very clear to read if or not you can. But that is a letter that he allegedly put out about him willing to treat and what he was going to do with Ruby. The agency's response to West's proposal was apparently ordered destroyed, along with all the other CIA MK Ultra records. However, he continued to appear in CIA files as late as 1991. According to one document, West was indirectly involved with the Stargate problem. Was he situated, and did he have a little period of time he spent in Montauk? Probably, which had a surprising amount of crossover with MK Ultra and its sister programs. While this particular project was undertaken by the Defense Intelligence Agency, the CIA a counterpart in the Department of Defense. It was considered a CIA equity. According to the document, serious government funded research of both these domains began in 73 when the CIA initiated a modest effort to determine if a genuine anomalous phenomenon could be verified and to assess the degree which it could be applied to general intelligence problems. And we are the general intelligence guys. Coincidentally, in 73, the same year that the MK project was officially terminated, but it wasn't really. It just got handed out to private contractors. But as I said, it goes on and on and on a little bit more about this individual West. But it was the fact that this individual with so much credentials and connections to the CIA and was somebody who carried out MK Ultra experimentations on humans. And there's a PDF there, I guess, that you could indeed take time to read, but it's going to be too small. So it doesn't necessarily suggest that Jack Ruby himself was a Manchurian candidate, but the fact that he was held in his own personal little private jail cell, and he was assigned a top-ranking expert in the field of MK Ultra research, there's a lot to suggest that quite probably he was indeed part and parcel of the MK Ultra connection to JFK. And that is it, guys. As I said, I did get a little bit delayed with the production. This does seem to be the case each and every day. No matter how early in the day I start, there always seems to be something that does cause me to be a little delayed and end up running a little behind schedule. So that was it. That was oh no, it wasn't. It was JFK. No, it was MK. I don't even know. Fuck me, guys. Sorry, excuse me. I've been a little bit focused on all of this. I forgot what I started out from, but this is MKJFK. This was night 8 of 2 weeks of tea, where we are celebrating 2-year anniversary of TspTv with a series of special themed streams each and every night up until November the 29th. So that was that. Mkjfk, we are going to return you right back to the thrift store studio where we will recommence with the live proceedings. See you there. Be there or be square. And there you go, guys. There was my little presentation on Mkjfk. If or not you found that interesting or not, we're about to find out. But let me get the camera back on at some point. Hold on a second. Bear with me, guys. Hopefully you can hear me. And we're back. Hi. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So there you go. What's going on here? I've zoomed in inadvertently. So, as I said, I don't know if or not you guys did enjoy that little bit of presentation or if or not you found it interesting. But it's something that is very, very interesting to me, that there is just seems to be an extraordinary amount of coincidences in connections regarding MK Ultra. And in regards to the people and individuals surrounding Kennedy and the assassination. And if or not you guys who did watch along, and if or not you were paying attention closely to what I was going to say, and I do appreciate that that was a lot of reading and a lot of looking at words on the screen, maybe not the best of visual presentations. However, the information that I tried to put in there was what was I was trying to get across more, that there are an awful lot of ties. Marilyn Monroe was an MK Ultra monarch. Alter Lee Harvey Oswald, as well as his brother, apparently, and he was experimented on as a child. Sorry, I did actually have my supper during that presentation, which is also something this does give me the opportunity to do while that is playing in the background, is pay a little attention to myself. I can have a smoke, have a drink, go and use a restroom, and I also had a bite to eat. So sorry if I do hiccup. If Baby P was here, there might even be some burps or not. So any thoughts or additions that you guys may have on what we just saw, that would be great to hear right now. But as I said, I am kind of aware that that was an awful lot of reading, and even kind of when I was reading it myself, towards the end of it, my eyes get a little bit squinty, and it kind of does hurt your head reading for a little while. So Cali Ninja, he said it was good info. Thank you for that. But as I said, it almost seems who wasn't under the influence of mind control in and around the events of the 11th of November 1963 that took place in Dallas, Texas there. And, you know, we saw yesterday how the majority of the people that were congregated in the plaza, over half of them were selected secret agents and undercover operatives. So how many of the others were possibly crisis actors? And we heard about the method acting in reference to Jack Ruby at the end. Then were they method acting? Was this part of the mind control that they carried out a real life dramatization? We saw what was alleged to be real life assassinations. And was this the dawn of crisis actors? Now the other thing about JFK, everything changed after 1963, up until sort of 1963. Sort of America still had that sort of wholesome, as I mentioned, the apple pie on the windowsill, sweet tea, white picket fences, 2.4 children, you know, wholesome entertainment, it would seem, on TV. There wasn't sex and violence and all that kind of stuff associated with music and movies. But after 63 and after JFK died, the 60s went very, very psychedelic. Kathy Little, you're still Kathy Tittle, sorry. T's, there's far too many T's for me, as we have established. But glad to see you stuck around. Now, we did have around 14 or 15 people watching for the duration, so I'm kind of guessing maybe the lack of comments through that presentation was because of people paying attention, which I kind of hope you did. And again, it was a little bit of a long presentation in terms to just listen and read the stories, but it's something that's fascinated me. MK Ultra is again one of my little babies, I guess, and one of the things that I have looked an awful lot in the past, and now very, very, very apparent that methodology has been modified for the masses and can be employed and distributed via our cellular technology. However, back then it was still in its early days of testing, and was the whole JFK assassination an experiment to see how programmed alters would act in a real life situation, so to speak, because MK Ultra apparently sort of started in and around the time of the end of World War II and in the time of Operation Paperclip. So in around 1963, some of these children that had been born into laboratories and been conducted on tests, or maybe individuals like Lee Harvey Oswald, who had an experience with MK Ultra as a child, was then deployed within the military, sent to Russia. Was he sheep dipped? And if or not you guys are aware of what sheep dipped is, sheep dip is when you take a military individual and they go through a process and pantomime, I guess, of making it look as though they discharge themselves from the military. They become very, very disgruntled with the government and the United States, and often, as is the case with Lee Harvey Oswald, they defect to the USSR and to communism. And I mentioned in that presentation Timothy McVeigh, the alleged bomber of the Oklahoma City building. What was it called? The FBI. Devil Speak. Glad to see you're still here, my friend. Yeah, eating ribs. You ain't going to be touching your phone with ribs, and I hope those were mouth-wateringly delicious. Ribs is something I haven't had in a very, very long time. Yeah, I don't know much about the Marilyn Monroe, and that's what I'm saying. Was she the unseen factor in all of this? What was her connection? She was clearly somebody that was programmed by governmental agencies. She was historically and for the record allegedly put through the Monarch MK Ultra programming, and she was used as a sex kitten to influence people. But was she Kennedy's trigger? Is what I'm getting at, or had she in turn programmed Kennedy, or was it Kennedy that had? Do you know what I'm saying? The mystery is bigger than the mystery, and we get the official narrative, and we also get the official conspiracy regarding 9/11, right? But even loose change depends greatly on a certain amount of the official narrative in order to deliver itself. And this is what I'm talking about here. How much of the JFK conspiracy is controlled opposition, and what really happened on that day? Is it anything close to what we are being told? Now, with all these, as I said, MK Ultra affected individuals that were there at the plaza in and around the time leading up and after that, it wouldn't be too much of a stretch of an imagination to kind of suggest who wasn't under MK Ultra, as I mentioned, or if I didn't, I forgot to. And you know, and in particular, the individual, I've forgotten his name now, and we were just talking about him, but the individual in question that was examining Jack Ruby. He had so many ties to MK Ultra. Not just that, he actually created methods of MK Ultra. So why was he assigned to Jack Ruby in particular to sort of examine him after the assassination? So that is about that. Have I somehow paused? Can you see me okay? Because on my side of things, I've gone blank, unfortunately. But something I did want to share with you. I don't think Tam Tam is here anymore. Excuse me for moving around there and then. Give me a sign if we are still live and in chat, because on one of my devices. Oh, okay, it's okay. I've reset it. See you is fine. Yeah, so I guess a little bit, you know, the audio book thing is a little bit of a factor there. So something I did want to read, I did actually read it the other day too, that I did want to include in this presentation to sign out on. And I was mentioning Tam Tam, I don't think she's here. She was asking about the smiley face with the blood. Well, that comes, some of you should know, but Tam Tam, she's not here anymore. I will explain, because I did say I would if she watches in the replay or not. Is from one of my favorite pieces of comic book literature, The Watchmen, a piece of literature I have recommended more than once that you guys should possibly check out and read for yourself, because it does really explain exactly, you know, sort of how an individual with wealth, influence, and resources can manipulate and create a Project Bluebeam staged alien invasion of his own. Read The Watchman, but The Watchman, the smiley face, is a symbol of that particular piece of literature, and in relevance to the smiley, it is a little bit of a link to JFK, because the blood on the side is on the head there would be a little bit significant to that of JFK. And where we're also going to go with The Watchman is back to this part of the speech that Kennedy was intended to deliver. Sorry, here I am. I've got to get closer because I want to read off of my computer screen because I can't remember it word for word without it. But Kennedy was set to deliver a speech on the 22nd. You know, once he'd done his little cavalcade and motorcade around, waving his hellos, he was going to do a speech in Dallas, and this was part of the street speech. Remember, Kennedy also spoke about monolithic secret societies and how they had a control over society, and that we should not tolerate it. So anyway, here is part of the speech. In fact, it is the end part of the speech. It's very long. I'm not going to read it all, but let me read this last two paragraphs for you. The strength will never be used in pursuit of aggressive ambitions. It will be always used in the pursuit of peace. It will be never be used to promote provocations. It will always be used to promote peaceful settlement of dispute. And then it goes on to finish and finalize. We in this country, in this generation, are by destiny, rather than by choice, the watchmen on the walls of world freedom. We ask, therefore, we may be worthy of our power and responsibility, that we may exercise our strength with wisdom and restraint, and that we may achieve in our time and for all time the ancient vision of peace on earth, good will toward men. That must always be our goal, and the righteous of our cause must always underline our strength. As was written long ago, except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. So there you go. That was where the Watchman comes from, and there is some reference in the Watchman graphic novel to JFK's speech and his reference to the Watchman. And the Watchman is from a Latin phrase, which I can't pronounce now, that kind of basically translates to who will watch the Watchman. And the Watchmen are the shadow government that are watching over us, scrutinizing us, surveilling us, monitoring us every minute of the day. So who watches them? We do, the Watchmen. So that is, as I said, one of my favorite pieces of literature, certainly within the comic world. Alan Moore, also the author of V for Vendetta, very interesting individual, and somebody I do plan to bring you a show about in the future, where we might cover The Watchmen and V for Vendetta all in one, because again, two very important pieces of literature that you could possibly read and would give you a good informative insight how to corrupt tyrannical governments operate. And despite what the little popular meme that was going around over the summer suggesting that V for Vendetta was set in 2020 and was all about a virus and how the government used the virus as a term of control and told people that it was for their own safety, it isn't. I can assure you it isn't. And when it comes to comic books, sci-fi and geekdom, always trust a geek, never a fucking meme with 10 characters to portray the information. So, as I was saying, after 63, America changed, and as a result, the world changed. We saw the dawn of psychedelia, we saw the hippie movement rise, and the reason I am talking about this and the hippie chain is because I am hopefully going to bring you tomorrow, or maybe Thursday, I'm not sure yet, a Tavistock Institute. If you don't know about Tavistock Institute, tune in for that one, and hopefully if you pay attention you will know all about Tavistock and just how much of a pivotal organization and institute this is in regards to the deep state shadow government and how they control the masses. So let's see what's going on in the contrasts. They was all MK'd. Kali Ninja Monkey emoji, Nancy laughing emoji, Nancy ICU, Laurie lol, Kathy lol. A reset. Indeed, it was a reset. Kathy, and it kind of reset the old kind of family demographics, and it introduced, as I said, psychedelic drugs to the popular culture movements, people out there, you know, into the hippies tunes, the Doors, the Byrds, Hendrix, Janis Joplin, the Monkees, all of that shit was all part of a Tavistock originated plan and plot to disrupt and reformulate how people behaved, and it worked. And towards the end of the 60s we had Woodstock, and the sort of 60s did overrun into the 70s. If you grew up in England, they run quite deeply into the 70s. And as I did, America changed almost overnight with the event of JFK. America changed once again in the events in aftermath of 9/11. And not only America, but the world is changing as a result of the latest psychological false flag operation that we are currently living in. But yes, JFK was about a reset. Now, interesting going back to his little speech there, and in regards to, was JFK a good guy? What was his intentions? Why was he truly killed? Was it because he wanted to pull out of Vietnam and expose this monolithic government? Or what if he was a threat to that monolithic shadow government? All right. What if he was the enemy of the state? And by the state, I don't mean us, our best interest. Was he enemy of the deep state? Not because he was trying to free them, but because he wanted control for himself. Now, also something that's very interesting is the fact that sort of Trump has loose ties to Kennedy's. Although I can't put any of that together right now, my brain is a little bit hurting. But is it Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is supposed to be that individual that is mysterious, that shows up at a lot of the Trump rallies and things? I suggested that he might even be a time-traveling Tesla, bearing in mind Tesla technology. Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump as well kind of is a very kind of similar portrayed character to the brains behind the Watchmen's false flag alien invasion, Ozymandias, who is the most wealthy and influential man on the planet. Although he's not a president, he does have many of the commodities that Donald Trump would have, and I've often suspected that maybe that is who he was meant to be. But in also the same token, could he have been a Kennedy? Were the Kennedys trying to bring in the one world order? Because a little bit, which we will discover on Saturday in our Star Wars special, the Sith, the Emperor, they brought in peace and harmony, even though it was under tyrannical regimes. But that's a little spoiler for Friday. Do we got Hislam here? Welcome. JF Jr. is dead. Well, again, the Kennedys have been reported and alleged to have faked their deaths. Was the JFK assassination, again, a very elaborate staged death faking? Did JFK stage it to run off and live in secret with Marilyn Monroe? So, as I said, these things are part of the mystery behind the mystery, as I was trying to explain, and things that I've often wondered. If or not I will unravel and solve them, I don't know, but it is certainly a little bit of a sort of theory that I have, or a mystery that I have, that may or may not be shared by others, that I've never really sort of seen suggested or approached in regards to JFK. I'm out of papers. Arg! No! I was being dramatic for you. So we're up to 16, folks, now. All seems to be the case as we are drawing to the end, because I'm going to be wrapping this up in around 10 minutes, guys, because it is 2 hours and 20. He was supposed to be following Trump's Valley in a van. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Yeah, you know the one I mean. I'm sure I was out of papers yesterday, Hislam, and had to go to the tourist section to get 4 packs of zigzags. Where are you, Hislam, if you don't mind me asking? If I have before and you've answered and I've forgotten, my apologies. Look at you, Martha, using your fucking junkie crackhead tactics of using the soda can. That's exactly what they do, crackheads, when they ain't got a pipe or a pookie on hand. But it is a very good tip. You can use a Coke bottle or a bit of paper. Just a receipt sometimes will work, although it is a little bit funny tasting because of the chemicals in it for printing purposes. But as I said, guys, that was my presentation on Mkjfk, although I could have put a lot more into that had time not gone against me, as was the case today. And sometimes you can account for outside influence or occurrences. So you kind of, there's, if I have noise or something going on, it does sort of in the background, it does prevent me from recording. But that was something, as I said, that was an interest to me. Hopefully it was an interest to you. Water and other pipes in Vietnam, but not in you're in Vietnam or you're in Cambodia? Sound like Fresca. In exile, stuck in Cambodia since March 22, when I came from Vietnam on the last flight. Okay, so are you like of North American descent originally, and you just were on vacation or working or sent over there for work, or were you unfortunate and got trapped over there while on vacation? So that is interesting. My goodness, look at us being international. So there is a little link to the tip jar. Anyone wants to chuck a buck or two in there for my trouble, I will be graciously appreciative of that. But if not, no worries. You are under no obligation. And this is what I'm saying, Martha. Was he trying to bring in the new world order? And was he kind of assassinated to prevent that? And in the Stephen King novel and serialization that was out recently on Hulu, 11/22/63, it was about a wormhole and a time traveler who went back to 1960, lived for 3 years in the 60s, leading up to the events of 11/22/63, where allegedly Oswald assassinated JFK, and he prevented that from happening, and JFK lived. But on his return to present time, which was 2016, and in the production value, the world was shit. It was horrible. And the people that kind of still lived within that world hated Kennedy because he brought in concentration camps. So I was never like into the Kennedy assassination because I thought Kennedy was a wonderful man. He was great. He was like a living a day saint. It was more the mystery of the cover up and who was involved in the governmental side of it, and if the government's willing to kill its own president, what else is it's willing to do? And again, we look at some of the stuff in the real life Stranger Things Montauk project in what was going on there. And even if one of those things that was alleged to be happening at Montauk, that is disturbing enough. If everything was going on at Montauk that they suggest it was within the legends and the conspiracies, then holy fuck, why would you even dream of going to the polling booth and voting for these motherfuckers, is what I'm saying. But me personally, I'm very anti-establishment. I've been anti-bank, I've been anti-government for many years, and I will possibly never change that opinion. I'm not here to change your opinion, I'm just here to share my opinions. You don't have to agree, you don't have to like, share, even if 99% of you aren't brave enough. Can I get an amen? You don't have to give an amen, I'm just being satirically stuff there. But anyway, Kathy Tittle says, totally, I'm guessing you're totally agreeing with me, or you totally agreeing with Kali Ninja. So it makes sense, Biden gets in, the NW will be ruled in. Now, something that was interesting, Devil Speak was chatting here, and we were having a little bit of a Discord. We got together in Discord a little bit yesterday, but I did go get myself something to eat, and then got myself settled down after the proceedings, although it was getting very interesting. Now, ever since the Napoleonic Wars, this is how far back this shit goes, and it goes back even further. You need to look up an individual called Albert Pike, and I did have a video on my channel around last year. Unfortunately, a lot of content was removed, and I had to remove to try and keep this channel alive during the community crisis, community strike crisis here at the thrift store, where for nearly 6 of the last 12 months I was on a code red community strike status. One more mishap, TspTv was gone. Lucky enough, we managed to get through that crisis, and we are still remaining strike 3. That's not to say we aren't shadow banned and passively censored anymore, but Albert Pike was somebody that I did feature in a video a little while ago, and he's somebody you should really look into, because way back in the 1800s, this individual pretty much wrote the plot and the script for the implementation of the one world order that is absolutely almost accurate. Unbelievable. You hear about Nostradamus, but nobody talks about Albert Pike. But going back to what I was saying about the Napoleonic War, ever since then, the industrialized military complex are big gangster bankers up there, the people that own and control the world through corporations and in particular banks. They were playing both sides of the war. They were funding the Napoleon side, they were phoning the British side. And on the end of that war, they both sent messengers to their respective capital cities and reported that both sides have lost, which in turn created a stock market crash because the nations, the respective nations, believed that they had lost the war. People started setting up. Those bankers bought everything and then said, listen, guys, we can bail you out from this war. Don't worry, if you give us control of your nation's banking system, we'll bail you out. And they did, and thus created their first little bit of power. And that was also the case in World War II. All those trucks that you saw the Nazi war machine driving around in were provided by good old Henry Ford. Grandfather Bush, he was providing oil and all sorts of stuff to the Nazis. Motorola, I can't remember the guy's name, they give the Nazis the most state-of-the-art communication system at the time. The Americans were funding the National Socialists, maybe not the governmental Americans, but the secret shadow government and industrialized military complex types were, and both sides of the coin are always played. Always. That way you are guaranteed a winner. That is the case now. Controlled opposition and the actual opposition. Both sides of politics are driven by the same head of the bird. The left and the right are both players in the same pantomime. They're just there to give you guys the illusion that you have a little bit of a choice in say in the matter. Your votes do not count. Your votes have never ever mattered. Don't have to believe me, but they never have. It is just a charade. It is just a pantomime. Whoever gets into the White House has been pre-selected in advance, months before the election goes on. That is just the pantomime and the parade to make everybody believe that they are not imprisoned. So as I said, a couple of you guys did say that this was a good show, so I'm very glad that you did enjoy it. He did speak of the 3 world wars. He even mentioned the 3rd world war would be against Islam. And we've had a war on terror primarily directed towards Islamic nations, where opium is rich and plentiful, and all the wars in the Middle East that you believe are for oil. Oil is the smokescreen, guys. It's the opium. Opium is far more valuable than oil to Big Pharma, and it is also a point of control. And, you know, a little bit back about Big Pharma and the psychedelic era of the 60s. Part and parcel of MK Ultra testing and techniques was to introduce LSD to its subjects. In the 60s, LSD was the drug of choice. Psychedelic music was the mind control of the time. This could well be the dawn of the electromagnetic mind control era. So is everything connected? I believe so. MK Ultra, understanding MK Ultra, understanding how it works, you get a bigger picture of how people in influence may well be under the control. Now, I did have a little video that, again, I wanted to pop in there, that presentation, and I did want to put a little bit about JFK and MK Ultra, but Bill Clinton, there's some footage and video evidence circulating, although it's hard to find these days, of him under mind control while he was carrying out his presidential campaign. We've just gone over to 2:30 there. I grew some Afghan weed. It was purple. Somebody mentioned something about opium. Indeed, opium and marijuana together. Oh my goodness, opium and cocaine. Oh dear goodness. Now we're talking a nice night in, but let's not talk about drug-infused recreational activities. Let's try to get back somewhat on thing. Yeah, all of them are under drug. But that was it. They implemented and found out that LSD was a way that you could manipulate the mind and get individuals under hypnosis and in a drone-like status. And then they implemented and introduced it to the masses. Same with crack cocaine, and this was again a CIA introduced drug to the ghettos. But as I said, guys, we are gonna try to wrap this up. Now, I was chatting as we've got a few minutes to kill, 2 hours 45 minutes mark now. In terms of rest of the week, because we will be finishing up, we are over the halfway mark. We've got, I think, for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we do got 7 nights left of 2 weeks of tea before we conclude. And yeah, the war on drugs. And another thing that's very interesting, guys, is the rise of opium addiction in the years after 2001, and I do believe that again the opium addiction was very, very part and parcel of controlling the masses. But as I was saying, back to the remainder of 2 weeks of tea, I did say I wanted to bring you a Tavistock related episode, which I was trying to do on a Tuesday or Thursday just because of all the teas. But I was thinking possibly on Tuesday tomorrow, just to give me a little break from putting together presentations and to give me a little bit of a window of opportunity to get a day ahead, which is what I want to try and do in terms of this. So I want to sort of have my presentation for tomorrow today. Not actually today, you know what I mean, for example state. So maybe tomorrow I'm thinking we might have a shoot from the hip, knowing T, knowing you, Tuesday. If that flies with you, and then maybe tomorrow I'll give you the opportunity to choose your topic of choice for Wednesday, Tavistock Thursday, and then we will blend and ease our way into the weekend shenanigans. Don't forget, we do got a Star Wars special coming on Saturday night, Star Wars Decoded. I have finished the intro, and oh my goodness, it did give me some fanboy ejaculations. If you are a fanboy, you'll know exactly what I mean when you see that. Will be a holy war. But now let's see what Kali Ninja's saying there. But that somewhat failed. Now COVID is used to be. Indeed, it is. COVID is a tool of control. Kali Ninja, and something I've mentioned many, many times in the electromagnetic frequency related content that I've uploaded or streamed live is that the symptoms of electromagnetic frequencies are identical to that they are suggesting are the symptoms of COVID-19. So they can control, or they can generate the symptoms electromagnetically that would be exactly the same if there was a COVID-19 virus and you caught it virally. So 5G, I believe, is not necessarily the next level of technology. I don't necessarily think that they're powering up. My belief is that this is the fifth generation of individuals or of humanity that will be bred into a world of total electromagnetic control. Those are my thoughts. I don't know if or not you guys will agree. Dark Winter is something very interesting. They could have next button they're going to smash is the UFO. Well, my Project Bluebeam content, Aztec, is something I've put an awful lot out of this summer. Check that out, because that is what I believe is going to be the next large false flag event. Would be something out of this world, either UFOs or asteroid. But an EMP would be the greatest thing mankind could probably welcome, because if they did take down the power grid, because it would affect the elites as much as it affects the commoners, it would remove their electromagnetic control over us all. But a technological society of surveillance requires a power source. Are the elites going to take away their weapon in order to make a suffer. I mean, possibly they might be able to have their bunkers and keep their power on, but it would be a very easy thing to simulate. Just imagine this: if the power company can turn your electric off when you don't pay the bill, then maybe the grid can be turned off at a whim, just with a flick of a switch. Something that was interesting, towards last summer with the PG&E power outages in Southern California. What was going on there? Stranger Things season 3, we saw that there was a lot of power outages within that, and it was because the secret laboratory was draining the power source to fuel their technology that required a large amount of power. So they took down the power grid and diverted all the energy into their generators in order to use that. Was that what was going on during the Cali power outages last year, or were they drills, dummy runs to see how people would operate and act without power? But EMP strikes, these are something that are very, very speculative, because as far as I'm aware, I don't think there has ever been an EMP strike. So unless they have carried one out secretly and clandestine, how would we know if or not it does take the power grid down if nobody's ever done one? Maybe that's what they were doing in the Cali power outages, practicing low level, close proximity EMP strikes. But this is something I believe that has been used. There's a little bit of a tool of fear in the aftermath of 9/11. Prior to 9/11, through the 80s and back to the 60s in the Cold War era, nukes were the threat that kept us a little bit fearful, and I believe now EMP strikes again are being used as a tool of fear and control, and maybe a way to sell you gadgets and devices that are rather overpriced that you don't really need. But Dark Winter, that was a project that, not a project, an operational simulation that I think one of the Rothschild owned organizations back in 2010 or 11 carried out a computer simulation about how an older generation would react to, I think, a smallpox outbreak. So that was a computerized simulation, Operation Dark Winter, or codenamed Dark Winter. It's something to do with Dark Winter, and what it was about was simulating how an older population, the elderly, would survive and react to a smallpox outbreak. In regards to real time and contemporary time, now we're in the dawn of wave 2. I know for a fact that a couple of you in the medical industry that have reached out to me privately, I'm not going to say who, just for anonymity and protect them, just in case they get in trouble for saying anything, but a couple of people that I do know that work in the hospitals south of the border are suggesting to me that all of a sudden people do seem to be sick, and whereas during the first wave, when they were telling us on the news that the numbers were high but the wards were empty, this time there are people turning up, there are people on ventilators, and there are one or two that are not doing so well as a result. So Dark Winter, are they about to remove the elderly? And depopulation agenda isn't something I believe that is going to happen overnight. It is going to be a gradual, multi-pronged attack on society. So something that I've mentioned before is very, very much part of depopulation is the Pride LGBTQRXYZZ movement. And that is because they don't reproduce. They can adopt, but they don't reproduce. 2 lesbians can't have a baby. 2 gay men can't have a baby. I don't even want to get into the depths and realms of non-binary or genderless individuals, but 2 same-sex couples cannot reproduce biologically. Although a lesbian could be inseminated with sperm if she so desired to have her offspring of her own, but without the sperm she can't reproduce. The AIDS epidemic back in the 1980s, at the dawn of when I believe this electronic or the digital age in first generation technology was ruled out, was a big fear factor, and one of the sort of quirky little narratives that was circulating around the time was, hey, you, don't be silly, put that condom on your willy. And people started having more protective sex, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it did reduce a lot of unwanted pregnancies, therefore depopulating. Transhumanism is where we are coming, and transhumanism was something I believe was introduced at the dawn of the digital age back in the 80s, in where we started to wear digital watches, and we used to wear our digital Walkmans and headphones, and we used to start carrying them on our person rather than actually having them in the corner of our living room. You know, when television became a thing, people changed the way their living rooms were set up in order to generate and surround the TV. It became at the center of every home. Now we carry around our whole little music video library in our hand. All our communication, everything is there. So well, there's a good chance, Martha, we might already have the chip. We might have breathed it in. If it is airborne and nanotechnology has been distributed, then you probably won't do. Yeah, I remember the $6 million man in the Bionic. Who doesn't? Steve Austin. But yeah, he was transhuman. And funny enough, the Bionic Woman, I believe, was also mind controlled, mind altered. She had no recollection of her life before, because Steve Austin and her together, they were both in a relationship, but something happened to her and they operated on her and she had no recollection. And that is why they practiced it on dogs. Aztec, they were the lab rats that they were leveling up. No, I'm not saying it is, but there is reasons or reports that that is what they put into the chemtrails. Now, it isn't that easy because the altitude that they do distribute chemtrails is twice the height of what a commercial jet would fly at. So the distribution of an airborne transmitted disease or nanotechnology would be very, very not. It wouldn't be very feasible to do it at that height because its distribution factor would be diminished. If you were at low level and you sprayed a crowd of 100 people, then there's a very good chance that that cloud of nanotechnology would be inhaled by people. But at that altitude, it's got to sort of filter down, and dust and wind and rain and all this stuff will kind of mean that not all of the payload will make its targeted destination. But everything in terms of the facts, DNA changing, nanotechnology, chip and pin, they're doing it anyway. We don't ever leave home without this. This is always around with us, and this is the belief that we're not chipped and pinned. Oh, we're not chipped and pinned. Out of my dead hand, I'll die before I do this. I'm not saying you wouldn't, but trust me, people, faced with death and faced with getting an injection, most people will take the injection despite their beliefs or thoughts prior to the events. Nobody wants to die. We have instincts in us that prevent us from doing that. That's why sometimes suicide is very, very hard to do, even though the song suggested it is painless. Now, again, if you were that concerned about the vaccine being enforced and wanting to live free of it, now would be the time to get out of the land while you still can. Don't wait until it's too late. But vaccinations, again, we have a flu vax or flu shot, but flu still exists. The vaccination, I don't believe, is anything to do with preventing a disease that has a 99% or a virus that has a 99% survival rate. It is about administering something else to us. If you watch Utopia, and if you watch in particular the UK season 2, you will find out that the design of the vaccine was not to cure the disease, but to deliver the device that was a protein that would render the human reproductive cycle useless. But we're chipped and pinned anyway. We carry around our phones. Cameras are absolutely everywhere, watching our every given moment. That's why we have smart technology, smart TV, smart refrigerators. All of this is surveillance, people. So if or not you get a jab, it doesn't really matter, because they will know where you are. But I do believe possibly in the future the vaccination certificate will be something. It won't be forced. It won't be, they say it's voluntary, or it won't be forced, but unless you get it, you probably won't be able to do an awful lot of things, and maybe you might end up as part of the disappeared if you don't comply. But now would be the time to fight. Now is the time to stand up and not wait until it is too late. And I'm pretty sure a lot of those Jews that got rounded off to the death camps didn't consent to it. And I'm pretty sure a lot of them were, oh, when the Nazis come for me, they'd never take me alive, only to be find out they were taken alive and dragged off to an agonizing slow death at one of the millions of death, no, not millions, but many of the hundreds of death camps that situated millions of slave labor. And you know who benefited from that slave labor? Our good old boys, the militarized industrial complex, the Fords, the Stanleys, the big oil companies, all of these people. But anyway, nanotech in the vax. And again, this is all speculation. This is all this vaccination talk at the moment that does seem to be circulating an awful lot on social media, I believe, is all part of the distraction design. It's got the anti-vaxxers against the maskers, and that is the battle. And this is the Clone Wars. This is Star Wars. The clones and the droids, both mindless, both told exactly how to act and how to program, and these two people battled it out for quite some time until what was left was just a ravaged, desolate galaxy that the Emperor then collateralized on by picking it up and creating the one galactic order. Understand Star Wars, understand everything. Read The Watchmen, gives you a greater understanding into shadow governments. Being a geek is what has given me these eyes to look beyond things, to look for Easter eggs, for hidden clues. This is what geeks do. This is why you see in many of these popular sci-fi and cult TV shows is that the heroes in question are indeed geeks. Harry Potter, he was a geek. The kids in Stranger Things, geeks. The people in Utopia, geeks. The Goonies, geeks. The kids that rescued E.T., geeks. All of them, geeks. I'm a geek. I'm trying to rescue and save the world in my own way. Luke Skywalker syndrome, trying to defeat the Galactic Empire all on my own. And you guys are what I'm trying to hope will be the Rebel Alliance, our little band of trusty Ewoks that no one's going to see coming or even give a bat of an eyelid to in poise of a threat. Rayman philosophy. But as I said, guys, the Ewoks, without the Ewoks, everything that happened was according to the Emperor's planning. Even the rebellion and the uprising and the resistance, even the plans that he gave to the rebellions that obtained in order to go and attack the Death Star, he gave them. Controlling both sides of the conflict, guys. So as I said, I'm trying to whet your appetite for Saturday. That is gonna be one of my personal favorite subjects and something I'm enjoying and already looking forward to. But back to the remainder of this week. If you guys are cool with the fact that maybe tomorrow, just to give myself a little bit of a break, not saying this is a pressure putting together these presentations, but I want to sort of try and start putting the presentation for Wednesday together tomorrow, so I'm not so necessarily fighting time schedules. Well, it does feel a little bit like I'm kind of working in my own personal newsroom, working to deadlines and schedules, and that is a little bit what TspTv is kind of to me. It's my channel. I do try to provide programming or entertainment or features for your enjoyment or information. Hopefully you are enjoying it. And another big influence in terms of geekdom and moviedom for me in terms to how I present this channel, Weird Al Yankovic UHF. So as I said, tomorrow, guys, I think possibly we are going to be doing a Knowing T, Knowing You special. And Thursday I will bring you a Tavistock related episode, unless, and here's the option, let me give you a choice. We do Tavistock tomorrow, and on Thursday we do a Knowing T, Knowing You. And in the next 48 hours, you guys who have Discord or have the Facebook, you can send me something that is of interest to you, and I can put in to the Thursday episode. So up to you. We can do a off the hip, off the cuff, Knowing T, Knowing You tomorrow, and do Tavistock on Thursday, or we can do Tavistock tomorrow, and you guys out there can send me a little bit of information if you like, and we can look into it on Thursday as part of Knowing T, Knowing You. Anybody? Anyone? Bueller, 17 folks again. Always seem to get more towards the end, but that's good. Hopefully the more that are here, they will be more inclined to return tomorrow when we open the thrift store doors once again. Tonight, what night is it tomorrow? Night 9 of 2 weeks of tea. What are you talking about? Tennis. Not sure what I've missed. Laurie's off now. She needs food. Canned peaches sound. Yeah, fuck me, I haven't had canned peaches for a long time, and they are very, very delicious. Me too, William Mason. I am a very proud anti-establishmentarialist, and very, very anti-government. Governments and banks are the things I hate almost most of all. But the thing I do hate most of all is Oxford United. You have no idea what that is, but it's a soccer, football-related rivalry. Geeks are the ones who invented the computer. Indeed, they are. And these little beta male boys without the ability to maintain erections are the ones that control all of this, my darling. But there are geeks, and there are geeks. Luckily for you, I'm not a geek. I've managed to maintain an erection and impregnate far more women than these people have probably ever seen or touched a real life woman. Not that that makes me anything special or anything of a conquest. We reproduce. It's what we're here for. I always get like a little bit cringe-worthy when guys think that they're special because they have sex. We all do it. Your grandma had sex. Your great-grandma had sex. Everybody have sex. If no one had sex, we wouldn't be here. But as I said, the young need to worry about it. The young don't. They're oblivious to it. And the trouble is, if you go and watch my years after years Fiction Decoded episode from the BBC TV show, you'll see exactly why transhumanism will be lapped up and embraced by the younger generation. They're going to think it's cool, just like back in the 80s we thought Walkmans were cool, but we really didn't realize at the time that they were actually devices of weaponry that were designed to control our mind. And once we put our headphones on, we then completed the circuit that embraced us in an electromagnetic field and bubble. So no one's talking to me on the TspTv Knowing T, Knowing You special. So as it happens, I'm making the choice. Don't tell me I didn't give you your choice. It's too late now. You've had your window of opportunity. That's closed. We're doing tomorrow Knowing T, Knowing You. We're going to be shooting from the cuff and just ad-libbing in it in a little style of Costanza, making it up as we go, a show about nothing. But as I said, that does give me a little bit of a chance to get ahead of myself, put together Wednesday's presentation tomorrow, and then that hopefully will give me some time to really work on the Star Wars special for Saturday night. Born January 72, July 71, William Mason. It was called a pipe organ. I just heard they're talking about passing a law behind our backs to let children choose without. They're always passing laws behind our back, Kathy, and that is again the big distraction of the COVID. That while the majority of the people are arguing over masks and vaccines, It's the other laws that they're implementing and pushing into place that we don't notice or will probably never know about until it's too late. A little bit like with 9/11, why we're all worried about the buildings coming down in radicalized Islamics with box cutters. We didn't realize that they were already rolling out and implementing draconian totalitarian measures and amendments to the American constitutional. No, a year and 6 months. If you were 72, I was 71. Did I say 72? I was born in 71, William. But as I said, guys, it was really good to see you all again here at the thrift store on this 8th night of 2 weeks of tea. We are getting close to the 3-hour mark. Longer than I expected, all things considered, on this Monday night. And I did suggest that maybe we might have an after show, but you know what? I'm going to leave you wanting more. So you'll come back tomorrow, hopefully all being well, where we will be doing a Knowing Tea, Knowing You, Shoot from the Hip special. So there's nothing to read or pay attention to. And as I said, I did give you a window of opportunity to choose what you want tomorrow and give yourselves the opportunity to maybe send me something of interest, but nobody said a dicky bird about that. It's too late, Nancy. You had your chance. You weren't paying attention. So Discord. Yeah, we might Discord tonight, although I am thinking of having maybe a soak in the tub as a little bit of a spoil and pamper, because I do got the place to myself. Have a little bit of a girly moment, some scented candles, some nice Zen music in the background. But sure, for a little while we will get over to the Discord if you want. Anyone else wants to come join us over there, we might have a little bit of a after show chinwag and hear what some of you have got to say, because there are some things I guess that you probably shouldn't say, or if you did, maybe the good old Google moderator team would remove. So as I said, we've got 2 minutes to go before the 3-hour mark. So let me think about actually a couple of minutes before getting, but I do need to think about getting the outro into place. I think I'm going to have to make a better outro as well for you all, because we did have a special Stranger Things themed outro for that particular special, and I really should have done something for JFK, because we did 2 JFK specials back to back, but I did do 2 very different intros for these JFK specials, and you will get hopefully tomorrow Knowing T, Knowing You special intro, all being well. But as I said, guys, that is it. We're wrapping this shit up tonight. The doors to the thrift store will be closing. And again, thanks for joining us tonight. Hopefully you enjoyed this evening's presentations. And as I said, my apologies if it was a little bit long-winded and a lot to read and pay attention to. But hopefully those of you that did pay attention found that a little bit enlightening and I don't know, I'm losing words now, but never mind. It is that time of the show where I get the good old outro into place, if it will allow me to. It doesn't seem to be allowing me to, you motherfucker. Here it is. Alrighty. So guys, thank you very much. As I've already said, this was night 8 of 2 weeks of tea, part of the TspTv 2-year anniversary celebrations. We will see you tomorrow once again at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 o'clock Central, and 6 o'clock Pacific time. I forgot what it is if you're up in the mountains, but thank you guys. We did appreciate your company tonight at the thrift store. This was a ship video production for TspTv. We'll see you in the next one. Till then, keep it thrifty, and remember, be excellent to each other.